which is the time and place that's been properly noticed for the regular council meeting of the City of Kalvo. Again, as you know, most of you were here, but we did have a workshop prior to this meeting regarding the new Kalvo swimming pool proposal, construction timeline and budget and features, and also the Kalvo Airport Master Plan update. So it's a pleasure to welcome you here. If you would all please rise for the invocation offered by Pastor Kathy Williams of the Blue Memorial Presbyterian Church, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a change. It's Karen.
You're all safe. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, guests, and constituents. I'm Elder Karen Mulheiser, and I'm the Mission Outreach Committee Chair from Blue Memorial Presbyterian Church in Kalvo. Let us pray. Holy and loving, creating God, we give you thanks for our community and for its leaders. We recognize the gift that it is to live together, to offer many and varied skills and talents and service to the greater good, and we humbly pray that we might be instruments of your peace here in Kalvo and beyond. Grant those gathered here today open ears to hear the voices of the community with compassion. Grant them open eyes to see the needs around them with clarity. And grant them open minds to serve the people with love. All this we pray in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and please be seated. And thank you so much for starting us off. It's nice to meet you, Pastor, and I apologize.
I'm not Pastor, I'm Elder.
Okay, well, Elder, nice to have you here tonight. Thank you. All right, would the clerk call the roll, please?
Hopper?
Here.
Olson?
Here.
Pollard?
Here.
McGee?
Here. Thank you. We do have a quorum of council members. We would like to excuse Council Member Allgood as he is on a well-deserved vacation with his lovely wife. And also we excuse Mr. Wagner as he is attending to some personal business that he had to take care of tonight. All right. Are there any items on the agenda that present conflict of interest for council members? All right. Hearing none, then tonight we have a few special presentations. The first one is my particular favorite of all the boards and commissions in the city. It is the report from the Kalvo Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. So I see members of the executive committee back there. If you'd like to please all come forward. And it's your turn on the agenda. Okay, who's going first? All right, welcome, Giselle. Go ahead.
So for those of you that don't know, I am Giselle, and I am the Vice Chair of the Marriage Advisory Council. And we just got back from D.C. Roughly around a month ago. And so we just like to share the things we did there and the experiences we got from it.
So I'm just going to start off with the first day. Well, it's not the first day. So we flew in on Tuesday, and then Wednesday is kind of where we started, doing all our stuff. But so we started on Wednesday going to the botanical gardens, and then we went to the Rayburn building. And when we go to DC, we always plan this thing, we always plan a white paper. And this year our topic was youth engagement, and really just how to get more youth in the nation involved in councils like us. And so we kind of gave a little we introduced the white paper to the staff of Congressman Simpson. And like I said, it was a topic of youth engagement and how we could get more councils involved. And then we went, Giselle and I presented there at the Rayburn building with the staff. And then next week went, to the Russell Building, and at that one, Jalissa and Darby went, and they presented, it's the same paper, but we presented to, like, multiple, like, congressmen and stuff like that, and so Jalissa and Darby did that, and then, they presented that to the staff of Senator Mike Kalvo, and then Lily, Spencer, and Jocelyn, which, are more members of the council, they addressed the white paper with Senator Risch, which was really cool because he was actually there, when we went to DC, so we actually got to meet him and just kind of like ask him questions about his job and like how he got there. And then we got to take a really cool tour like of the grounds around the Capitol and kind of learn the history of it. And my personal favorite thing was like all the trees that were there. They were like memorials and stuff for people and like accomplishments that happened in the U.S. So that's what we did on Wednesday.
Mike's too tall for me. Hi, I'm Lily Haynes. I am the historian for Kalvo, and so I'm just gonna recall what we did on Thursday of our DC trip. So we all rode the Metro for the first time, which is something that we all found really cool, because, you know, we're from Idaho, and you don't really get much of those. So that was really, just a really cool experience. Then we went to the Arlington Cemetery, and I think I speak for pretty much all of us when I say that that was such an amazing experience. We got to witness the changing of the guard, the importance of the number 21 in their, like salutes and everything like that, and that was really cool. And then we got to see the flame at Kennedy's grave, the reflection in pools, and just the tomb of the unknown soldier. Then we went to the Holocaust Museum, and that hit us all hard. It was really cool in the sense that we got to see the history of our nation and a culture. The stuff that really hit us hard there was the room that had all of their shoes in it, as well as statues of Jews that were locked in gas chambers, and it was heartbreaking, but it was a really good experience. Then we toured some more of the monuments. We went to the Washington Monument, the World War II Monument, and took a picture in front of the Idaho Pole. And then we went to the Lincoln Memorial and the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. So that was pretty much Thursday. Overall, we were exposed to like the history that made this country what it is today, and we were exposed to totally different cultures, and I just think that that really helped us all to become better leaders.
Alright, and our last full day there was Friday, which I would say out of all of those days, that was probably one of the most chill days, even though we did a lot of walking. But, we started our morning at the Museum of Natural History, where we got to, see the evolution of a lot of things from our past and what the different gems and animals, and that was really neat. And then, we went to the Museum of Air and Space, which sadly the airspace was under construction, but we did get to see a lot of the space side, and that was really neat, to see the different spaceships and, learn about the different, exhibits they had set up there. And then our favorite thing that we did, well, I enjoyed it because I like food. The food truck was, really neat. I had never seen that many food trucks, but, that was really cool. And then we went to the art museum, which I'm not much for art, but that like blew me away. I could spend hours there. It was beautiful. And then, we saw the rest of the monuments. We took a long walk through, the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, and then to the Roosevelt Memorial, and then to the Jefferson Memorial. And the Jefferson Memorial is really neat, if anyone has gotten a chance to see that. That was one of my favorites. And then, we ended our day at the Cheesecake Factory, which, even though we have one in Idaho, I had never been to before, so that was really kind of cool to experience in DC. But overall, I really loved the experience, because we got to travel, and it was a travel that it meant something and had a lot of history, and so we got to kind of learn what kind of goes on at the government level to the states, to the cities, and so we can kind of understand more what we do here. So that was really neat.
And I understand you had an exceptional tour guide. Is that correct? Well, again, this is Darby Rossi. She is Regan Rossi's daughter, who is the athletic director. Oh, well, thank you. I'm singing Wednesday night at the NNU game. Thank you very much for all that. So, also, would you like to tell us a little bit, just for the audience, knowledge, obviously it costs money to go to that trip. Would you tell them how you go about raising money and maybe some of the other things that you do throughout the year that make this council so wonderful? Before they do that, though, the reason they're here to talk about the DC trip is one of the things we've always talked about in leadership is accountability. You certainly empower people, you trust them, you work together, and it's all teamwork, but there's also accountability on every side of it. So, a lot of people donated money for these students to go to Washington, D.C. The council supports that. The public supports it. So we think it's really important for them to come back and report from the accountability side. So that's why they're all here this evening, as well as the annual report from the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. So just before I let you go, would you please just, whoever wants to, just talk a little bit, or you can share it, just a little bit about how you raised the money for this, and also some other maybe service projects that you are so good at doing.
Well, none of that would have been possible without the countless support we received from the city, and one of the biggest ways that we do receive a lot of our money and our ability to do these things is from our fundraiser dinner that we host annually. Unfortunately, we have not been able to have that in person the last 2 years, as we continue to have to postpone it, but we've done our best, and through that, we still have people support us and donate, and so they've made that possible.
If I can add too, I think the total makeup of Kalvo really helped us too, because we had support from the previous years through the money and just our whole build-up and the structure of our council.
And then just like one last thing about the fundraiser dinner and like why I love Caldwell so much is like most of these people that were supporting us, like supported us in 2019 when it got like postponed, and then they supported us again in like this year when it also got postponed again. So they supported us like 2 years straight without even actually having a fundraiser dinner. So that gave us a lot of money to be able to help future years as well. So that was really great. Some service projects we do is we do Break Up Caldwell, which was last weekend. I don't know how many houses we cleaned, but I heard it was a great, we got a lot of people to help come clean up. We have Adopted Family, which is coming up in December, and we find family in need, and we buy them dinner for Christmas, and we buy them some presents for the kids, just to make them have a happier Christmas. And we also have the Salvation Army bell ringing, which should be coming up soon as well.
Thank you, Darby. All right, well, thank you to all of you. This is something that is obviously very near and dear to me, as I mentioned earlier. This is the 24th year of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. We don't know the exact number because it fluctuates, but we're guessing somewhere between 700 and 800 students have been a part of that program in that 24-year period of time. And it's awesome. You know, some of the students, for instance, our communications specialist, Bianca Stevenson, who used to be Bianca Mora, was a member of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council some 10 or 12 years ago. I mean, that's just one example. And the service that is accomplished by these students is absolutely amazing. And then they're leaders. You know, you've heard some say, well, these are the leaders of tomorrow. And I've always said, no, they're the leaders of today. And they have shown that through who they are. These ladies are amazing. There are a few guys, but they will tell you that in this case, the girls rule, guys rule when it comes to the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. And so anyway, I just want to compliment all of you. They've stuck through some very difficult times. Normal years, we have 30 or 35 members of the council, but because of COVID, we were not able to get into the schools and recruit and do some of the things that we normally do. We didn't have some of the activities where we recruit students. And so we're at about 10 or 12 students that have just stuck with it through all of this, and they are the committed, dedicated ones. And I just can't say how much you mean to me, how much the example you set for me is appreciated, and indeed you are the leaders. And then last, I'm gonna embarrass her, but the little one on the end is my granddaughter. And so we've had the privilege of helping to raise her since she was 3 years old, so she is, I told her she had to be on the council, but that's not true. She wanted to be on the council. So anyway, thank you, ladies. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, I would not be doing my job because I know several of the council members would like to know what the white paper is about this year.
I think
They
touched
always
on it.
ask that.
Yeah. Bria, I think you touched on that.
Yeah.
Or who was it, Giselle?
No, I'm first.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I can go more into depth though, but basically this year, because our numbers were like so short this year, and COVID, definitely, it not helped it, but like, that was one reason why our numbers were so short, but, I think Idaho is really one of the only states that has like, a mayor's youth advisory council in like the cities and stuff. And so we just want to be able to, reach out to like the congressmen, like the representatives and senators, to be able to kind of help us get that message out that there are mayor's youth advisory councils, that can help students, and bring the students in and do a lot for their community. So we wrote it about youth engagement and like how we can engage the youth in America.
I'd also like to add, we just also want to make a better outlook for the youth. Right now, there's a lot of influence on social media and just in the communities that is impacting the way that the youth is acting, and we don't necessarily agree with all of it. And so we want to be able to bring everyone together and try to get a better outlook for the youth, and better involvement for the future leaders.
And speaking of Bianca, I didn't see her. She must have been behind the podium. This is Bianca Stevenson. Used to be Bianca Moore, who also helps with the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. All right, ladies, thank you very much. I think we've grilled you enough, and I'm sure you have homework or whatever, but thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
Mike Pollard here.
Oh, I'm sorry, another question. I apologize. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a question, so much as a statement. First of all, I want to thank you so much, sir, for everything you've done to build the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. I mean, it's amazing. It's something our city is extremely proud of. Now, I'm not the council liaison, Dennis is, but I have had the pleasure of attending Mayor's Youth Advisory Council meetings, and these kids are just amazing. And it's been my pleasure to interact with them over the years.
Thank you, Mike. Agreed. Amen. All right. Any other comments, Mr. McGee or Mr. Hopper? All right. I guess you're free to go.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. This is the Zoom lag. It's the Zoom lag. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Was that Mr. McGee?
No, that was Mr. Hopper.
Oh, Mr. Hopper.
I want to thank kids for their participation in that, and, it's just awesome that, they're motivated to do this and getting a look at, government in action, so it's all good.
Okay. Thank you. Now, Mr. McGee, last time.
Good, he's not even there.
Are you there, Mr. McGee?
I sure am. I love listening to the presentation, and in fact, I used to work in the Russell building. It was kind of cool for me to know that you guys were able to go there and meet with our elected officials there. It's what you've done, Mayor, and what those students have done has just been tremendous. I'm very proud of them.
All right, it's unanimous. We're all proud. All right, thank you so very much. You bet. Have wonderful. You're welcome to stay or go or whichever you'd like to do, but thank you. All right, the next update report is from the Kalvo Public Library. Hi, Lacey. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting us here. I'll be sharing our report on behalf of our board. So first, I wanted to just start by acknowledging our current library board members, our board of trustees. Bonnie Smith is our chair, Larry Blackburn, Rex Hansen, and Alex Drake, also serve, as board members, in addition to our city council liaison, John McGee. And our board members are, of course, volunteers that care deeply about the library and the community, so we're very fortunate, to have them serving on the board. So I just have a few highlights that I wanted to share from this past year. The stats that I'll be sharing are from January 1st to September 30th. So first, just wanted to address, as we're looking at these numbers, of course, COVID necessitated some changes. We have to get a bit creative about how we continue to deliver some of our programs and services. But I just also wanted to highlight, over to the left there, you'll see our computer sessions. The last few years have very much brought to the forefront that not every household has consistent access to computers, the internet, tablets, things of that nature. So we're trying to fill that need however we can. The library has computers, of course, available to patrons. We also have laptop checkout, mobile printing, and our Wi-Fi has been very important in keeping folks connected as well. So even though we've unfortunately had access to the building limited in some instances over the last year, we're still doing what we can to ensure that folks have access to the internet and computers. Again, we are very busy. There have been over 70,000 questions answered by staff at the circulation and reference desk. And those, of course, can be the obvious questions from where to find materials, and can move to more involved questions dealing with job seeking, resume building, housing assistance, rental assistance, things like that. So we are staying very busy.
Like who's gonna win the Super Bowl and things like that?
Haven't been asked that one yet, but it might be coming. I would be coming.
I didn't know how in-depth your knowledge was on some of those.
Yes. Right. And then, the program participants, this has unfortunately been a little bit lower than it typically is. There's been some restrictions on gathering and program sizes as well, but we had over 3,000 kids, teens, and adults participate in the programs that we've had. So a good turnout, despite some of the challenges that we've faced. We had around 4,500 curbside pickup appointments. This is what we started when we closed the building early in 2020, and we will continue to offer these services moving forward, as it's been quite popular. At the time that we took these statistics, Kalvo had served over 58,000 community members, and we had over 19,000 library card holders. So it's nice to see that number continue to increase, and I just also wanted to note that library programs are free and open to the public, regardless of whether or not anyone has a card as well. And awards, I just wanted to take a moment to brag for a minute if I can, maybe more than a minute. But we had the honor of receiving this past fall 2 Idaho Library Association awards at our annual conference in October. That first award goes to our ILA Friend of the Year, Donna Briscoe. She is the secretary for our Friend of the Library board. She's also a volunteer. She's with us multiple times a week. She sells books, book sales. She's a very lengthy list of things that she helps us with. So we're grateful for all that she does, and we're happy to have her with us. The second award from the Idaho Library Association went to Shelley, Garland, the Paraprofessional of the Year. She is our Technology Service Coordinator, and she has faced several challenges with technology being in that role. She's constantly coming up with ways to safely support patron technology needs, as well as needs of the staff member, as those have been changing. We've made a lot of technology plans with Shelley over the last year or so, and we've changed a lot of plans, and she's still hanging in there with us and doing a fantastic job. So we're fortunate to have her in that role. And then the final award that I wanted to mention from the Association of Idaho Cities that we received is the Garrett and Nicola City Achievement Award. Given the name of the award, when I found out that we won it, I was a bit suspicious. I wanted to make sure we deserved it, but I think we've earned it. And that was for providing virtual programming and take-home kits during the pandemic. So, exciting things happening over the last year, and we're grateful to get that recognition. And then, finally, I wanted to highlight a few projects that have been possible through some grant opportunities that we've received. We are going to be getting a new outreach vehicle, and this is made possible through ARPA grant funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and this is administered by the Idaho Commission for Libraries. And our outreach van will allow us to bring internet technology, library materials, and other resources to underserved portions of the city that are outside walking distance of the library. So essentially, it will help us support deliveries for homebound patrons, those residents in care centers, as well as we'll use that for school outreach for all of the schools in Kalvo, Valley View, as well as a lot of the Head Start programs that we assist with. And then, in addition to the outreach vehicle, we are going to be adding a historical Kalvo timeline installation in the library. This is made possible through Sustaining the Humanities Through American Rescue Plan grant administered by the Idaho Humanities Council and the National Endowment for Humanities. So we have, as you know, an extensive collection of historical materials that are unique to Caldwell, as well as Idaho in general. So we are working towards transforming the outside wall of the Idaho room into a 3D timeline, which will showcase that collection. And there will also be a digital component. We're trying to digitize as much of that collection as we can to make that accessible. And that was all that I had prepared to share. Those were the highlights that I wanted to note for you. I'm not sure if you have any questions or comments, but I'd be happy to answer them if you'd like.
First comment, and that is thank you. Our library is exceptional. And it starts with your leadership and certainly all the wonderful staff there, the board. We just really appreciate everything that the library provides for the citizens of our community, and you're to be congratulated.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Questions from council? All right, I guess we're going to let you off the hook tonight.
Very good.
Thank you, Lacey. Appreciate you very much. All right, the last update or report is from Republic Services, Rochelle Klein, Municipal Services Manager for Republic Services. Welcome, Rochelle.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, I'm Rochelle Klein with Republic Services, 2130 West Franklin in Meridian. And thanks for allowing me to come tonight to just give you an update. It's been a while since I've been back in front of you, so we have some possibilities that we want to bring forward tonight, and so I'll just kick it off with Friends Healthcare. On the first slide, so just a quick run through the slides, just an overview of who we are nationally, and then who we are locally, current services in town, what our community partnership looks like, and then some opportunities that we think there are out there. Okay, and as you guys probably know, we don't change much. The faces stay relatively the same in Caldwell, but we are a big company of over 14 million customers. And you can see here on this slide, just talks about the magnitude of our company. And what that means locally is that we can bring resources in when we need to make changes as communities demand them. So we're in a good position there. The last two are probably the most notable for me, at least, as an employee. One is that we locally have an 85% employee engagement score, which is really good, and especially as there's restlessness in the country. I think that's really something that we're proud of. And then also that we're 39% safer than the industry average, and that's measured by OSHA reportable accidents and injuries. So safety is a huge priority. These are just some of the awards and different recognitions we've received just this past year as an employer and as an environmental leader. Locally, although we have 350 employees locally, maybe more than that now. The leadership here is in Kalvo is very focused the people serving your community. And tonight, I'm joined by Bob Bennett, he's our general manager, and so with COVID, we haven't been out very much, except for very virtually, so it's nice to have Bob join us here tonight. So he oversees all of our Idaho operations, and then I'm the municipal services manager, used to be business development manager, but I got a new different title. And then Jeremy Jenkins is your operations manager here in Caldwell. And then here's a list of just the folks that we have supporting trash and recycling services here in town. And then just, as an overview, I know, we have a municipal franchise agreement with the city, but sometimes it's good to review what that means. And so everyone in Caldwell has residential trash service, and that was, we've had a relationship with picking up your trash for over 25 years, a long time. It's a limited service, so you fill the cart first, and then additional trash goes in other containers after your cart's full. That's weekly service, and then we have, spring cleanup and after Christmas cleanup where we pick up whatever bulky stuff winds up not being needed any longer. We also provide industrial and commercial trash services, and that's based on the customer's need. And then residentially, on the recycling side, it's a subscription service, and it's every other week, and we have about 5,300 households that participate in this program, which is pretty exciting. And that's recyclables that are all mixed together for residences, households, and then commercial, the commercial sector as well. All the trash here goes to the Canyon County landfill, and waste from like residential waste at least is $14.50 a ton, which has been the same rate for I don't know how long. My husband grew up here in the 70s, and it was the same price. I think they managed it really well, so it's really an affordable landfill. And all the recyclables go to Western Recycling. There's a Nampa site here, and then they're all transferred to Boise, where they're sorted at the recycling facility. And also, just to make sure, we want to make sure you're aware of this, but we really pride ourselves in a resilient operation. So over the years, we've, looked at what can we do here locally to insulate ourselves from global changes. And one of the things we did years ago now, in 2009, is we started switching our fleet over to compressed natural gas, because it's domestic and it's affordable and it's clean burning, and it's just a local resource. About 5 years ago, we started switching from just regular compressed natural gas that we buy from Intermountain Gas to renewable natural gas. So we pay clean energy to source renewable natural gas from wastewater treatment facilities and dairy digesters and landfills for us. So almost 100% of what fuels our fleet in Caldwell is from problematic methane. So it's kind of interesting. Also, although we don't make as much, or maybe it costs us a little more, I should say, on the recycling side, we choose now to keep all of our recyclables in the United States, and some go to Canada, but we no longer rely on foreign markets like Asian markets or Indonesia, Vietnam, like all those countries that were once hubs for recyclables. We've made a concerted effort here at Western Recycling, as our community partner, Western Recycling now markets those just to U.S. companies. So that takes the risk out of the recycling market, like we saw a few years ago when China shut its doors. It became very difficult to move recyclables, and so now we've found domestic outlets. So we're really excited about that. Also, the recycling is processed locally and then kept here in the United States, and your trash just goes right out to Pickles Butte. And then the last thing, and as part of our resiliency model, I guess I would say, we're all FEMA trained, and so we've been FEMA trained for years. In the event something happens, we've got a plan in place for Caldwell to work with FEMA and with city leaders to make sure that we get the community cleaned up quickly and moving forward. And also on the truck side, this year we added our first electric trucks, and we'll have 10 trucks by early 2022. And we have a clean energy portfolio with mostly hydro and some wind and solar and a little bit of natural gas, and coal, but Idaho Power is moving away from coal. So we're in good shape for powering an electric fleet, and you'll see more of those trucks in Idaho in 2022. Our partners, it's something that has been from the beginning of time. I feel like we've been community partners, and I actually got tearful listening to my kids, because it's been a long time that we've been supporting those kids, and it's fun to see those kids grow up and go off and do great things. And Some take a while to find their way, but it's nice when they come back home and, land back in this direction. And, another way that we partner is, the compressed natural gas tax credits that we've been getting for the last 8 years. When we get those federal tax credits passed back to us, and that's the 50 cents per gallon equivalent of gas tax that we pay, by using alternative fuel or clean burning fuel for the last 8 years, we've been getting that 50 cent per gallon tax credit back, and then we pass that back, to you guys. And so last year, it was, I think, around $53,000 or $54,000. And we just parsed out the number of gallons burned in each community, and so, that was just them out here in Caldwell. And other things too, that I just kind of listed some of the highlights up here that, we've been invested in a long time. And the reason I thought that I come tonight is the next slide, probably, right? Recently, we've talked about treating trash more like a utility, meaning not everybody uses the same amount. And base trash is $12.68 a month. But we have an opportunity for people who don't generate as much, to maybe go to a medium or small size cart and not use an unlimited level of service. And so we just launched that in Nampa, and there was, a fair amount of interest. We're still rolling it out now, but about 14% of residents choose, like maybe they're seniors, or maybe they have a physical challenge, they don't want the big 96-gallon cart, and, or they just are really good recyclers or don't generate a lot of waste. And so, it's nice to bring options forward, and so one thing we would like you guys to consider is looking at maybe introducing a 3-tier system where people can treat trash like a utility in our household and just pay for really what they throw. The other opportunity is we were working on a recycling compactor at Indian Creek Plaza, and Corey asked us if we would be willing to, support advertising on the Zamboni, and put our logo on the side, which sounds really fun. I think that's great. And it's $10,000 a year for 3 years, and then I was looking at our contract, and our contract expires in 18 months. So I called the mayor and I said, hey, can we talk about this? And we want to make sure we shore up any advertising with a contract so that we know that we'll still be in the community. And he said, well, this is probably something that we should bring to the council, because maybe yes, maybe no. So we wanted to bring forward the opportunity of maybe advertising or with the Zamboni or doing something else. We do have an advertising budget, and, there are lots of great opportunities, I guess, to advertise in Caldwell. So that's something I wanted to share with you tonight, and then ask you to just consider at a future council meeting and be thinking about both those things. So a 3-tier trash system and advertising in Caldwell on an ongoing basis. That's that. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Questions from council? Anybody on Zoom?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
Mike Pollard here. I just want to thank, Republic Services. I've had occasion to have to call them, over the last year or so. I didn't speak to Rachel directly, but I spoke to some really nice people. And they always answered my questions very politely, and I knew exactly what I needed to do when I did that call. So they are a great asset for our city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments from council members? All right, Rochelle.
All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you for the presentation.
All right, have a good night.
We sure appreciate the partnership.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. McGee.
Hey, I should have caught this just a couple minutes earlier, and so for that I apologize. Under conflict of interest declaration, and it's not under, I wanted to catch this right before the consent calendar, but this would be number 4 under new business. Mr. Mayor, under an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse myself from voting on action item number 4 under new business.
All right, and that probably presents a problem as far as being able to hear it tonight, because that then takes us down to 3 council members. I would guess that would have to be continued then.
Yeah, I think that's the best course of action there.
Okay. All right then, what we'll do then, at the appropriate time, he can participate in a motion to continue it. It's just that he won't be able to do it. So I apologize, but if there's anybody here from item number 4, because of the conflict of interest there, that only leaves 3 council members, with 2 of them gone. So that means we do not have a quorum to hear that particular item. So it will have to be continued to a time and date certain, which would be December, what is the date for December 6th meeting. So I apologize for that, but if you are here for item number 4, it sounds like we won't be able to hear that tonight, so I do apologize. Thank you for that, Mr. McGee, do appreciate it. All right, so that, let's go back then to, audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council about an item that's not on the agenda? All right, thank you very much. Then the next item is the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question.
Mr. Mayor.
Under item number 2, it says approve the order of decision and development agreement, case number, Sterling Ridge, approving its signatures, or with the signatures contingent. Do we go ahead and pass that, or do we hold that?
Yes. So it's all in there.
Okay, thank you.
So it's able to be voted on tonight, so. All right, with that then, is there a motion on the consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Mr. Pauling.
I move that we approve the consent calendar as printed.
Thank you, is there a second? Second. A motion by Mr. Pollard, second by Mr. Carlson to approve the consent calendar as printed. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Pollard,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes. Thank you very much. The consent calendar has been approved unanimously by the Kalvo City Council, those members that are here. That takes us then to old business. The first item of business is to consider bill number 30, ordinance number 3350, for case number ANN 21-000007, known as Sterling Ridge annexation, with a request to waive the rules and pass on the first reading and to approve the summary for publication. Again, this is related to the item under the consent calendar, and those items were delivered. So I will read this ordinance by its title only and ask for council's consideration. And, excuse me, again, this is brought forward with a request to waive the rules and pass it on its first reading and to approve the summary for publication. Bill number 30, ordinance number 3350. An ordinance determining that certain land placed contiguous to the city limits of the city of Kalvo, County of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed to the city of Kalvo, Idaho, as part of the R2 medium-density residential zone. Declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the city of Kalvo, Canyon County, Idaho. Directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the city of Kalvo, Idaho. Repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith. And directing the clerk of the city of Kalvo to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, state of Idaho, and the Idaho Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Carlson.
Mr. Mayor.
I would move that we, suspend the 3 reading rule, consider bill number 30, ordinance 3350 on its first reading by title only.
Thank you. A motion by Mr. Carlson. Is there a second?
Second.
I think Hopper, I'm looking at the attorney to see who he heard first. I think it was Mr. Hopper was first. So we have a motion and a second by Mr. Carlson and Mr. Hopper to waive the 3 reading process. Consider bill number 30, ordinance number 3350 on its first reading by title only. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Carlson.
Yes.
Pollard,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Hopper.
Yes.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The bill is before you.
Mr. Mayor, I will sponsor bill number 30, ordinance number 3350, move for its passage, and approve the summary for publication.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Pollard, to sponsor bill number 30, ordinance number 3350, move for its passage on its first reading by title only, and to approve the summary for publication. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Carlson,
Yes.
Pollard,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Hopper.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Bill number 30, ordinance number 3350 has been passed on its first reading by title only, and the summary approved for publication. Thank you very much, council members. And for those in the audience, just for FYI, a couple things happened that you might be interested there. First of all, the rules were waived and considered the bill on its first reading by title only. If a bill has been heard in this case previously, a decision has already been made, then it's considered routine in nature. So the legislature has authorized councils to waive a 3-reading process. In other words, read that bill in its entirety 3 full times over the next 3 council meetings before it becomes law. The second piece of that is that the legislature has also authorized that a summary can be produced by the attorney for publication in the newspaper rather than publishing the document in its entirety, which then also saves taxpayers a lot of money. You can imagine publishing some of these bills that are 20, 30, 40, 50 pages in its entirety in the newspaper. And that's no offense to the newspapers, we'd rather just do it in short version rather than in long version. So those 2 things happen, but they have to be done by council only, and it has to be by a majority of the council. So in other words, if any of the council members tonight would have voted no on either of those actions, we would have had to go to 3 readings completely, and also to change the summary and publish the entire document. So just wanted you to know that. Maybe you're interested, maybe not, but those are tidbits of information that happen and often fly under the radar that you might be interested in. All right. Also, that was a legislative action by passing the ordinance. However, the bill, or the hearing that generated that ordinance was quasi-judicial. So there's also different types of actions that you will see on the agenda tonight as we go through. All right, that completes item number 1 under old business. Item number 2 is a public hearing. This is legislative, known as case number 082108, continued from August 16th. A request by the Planning and Zoning Department amending Chapter 10, Article 12, City Center Zoning District of the Kalvo City Code with a new designation of Central Business Zoning District and text changes to implement. This is legislative. There are sign-up sheets over here to my right, but you're not required to be sworn in on this one. And so if there's anyone who would like to speak that hasn't had the opportunity to do so.
There are no.
Oh, I'm sorry. I lied. Unintentionally, but I did. The sign-up sheets have already been had because it was continuing. So I do apologize. Thank you for reminding me. All right. So we have this item before us this evening. I'll declare this public hearing open. And Mr. Matt.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. We had a meeting on October 2nd where I made a presentation to you of where we were at the time regarding the Central Business District / City Center. We had comments from the council, comments from the public, and so I sent you a memo on November 9th that basically covered those discussions. And let me summarize those for you in a second. There was concern about the purpose of the planning department doing this. And as described in the memo, that we tried to work through the current ordinance. We recognized there were some issues, concerns about managing this particular zone. It's identified as the Central Business District, but most of the requirements in this particular area deals with the city center. The city center, or I should say Central Business District, is really broken up into 3 categories. You have the Central Business District. Under that, you have the city center. Under the city center, you have the Creek Corridor, as well as the Kalvo Historic District. All of those are within the Central Business District. The way the ordinance currently reads, and I'm going to use the term, gives the impression that the city center is the large commercial area. If you scroll down to the last page, that's the page with the map. In the zoning ordinance, it identifies, it says, in the area city center, say, look at the map. This map includes all the downtown, is identified as the city center in the zoning ordinance, now. When actually the city center is the green area on the map. The purple area is the Kalvo Historic District. Mayor, you asked the question, or made a statement last time regarding that, and it's shrinking back to where it was originally. That is the official boundaries. And we talked to, SHPO, State Historical Society office, and they stated that in order to reduce that to its original, to the area that we would like, they would have to do a complete study. And that was not something they were willing to do at this time. So, as we did, on the map where you see the red lines, that is the Indian Creek corridor. And so what we've done in the ordinance change is identify each of those boundaries within the document. The current document doesn't really do that, or it's located in separate parcels of the ordinance. Okay, you can go back up. Thank you. The other issue that we're concerned about was residential. In the current ordinance, residential in the city center requires no parking. Outside the city center, the code reads that if you're not in a residential district, use the R3 zoning classification to determine what the requirements would be regarding parking, setbacks, number of dwellings per acre. Unfortunately, we had the confusion. It was that since the entire area was identified as city center, we have a house or apartment that was built with 12 units and no parking, and there is no landscaping. So when staff did that, they were looking at the section of the code that says, in the city center, no parking required. But that was not the intent. And that was kind of the time when we said, we have to make some changes. Regarding land use, there's a lot of discussion on this in regards to what land uses should be in the city center versus land uses in the central business district. Discussion goes to the point that we shouldn't have two districts. Well, we technically have 4 districts. The central business district and the city center have land uses which are compatible to both. Some are not compatible to the city center, such as a service station, in my opinion. A lot of discussion at the last meeting was on drinking establishments. Drinking establishments that currently states, with live music or entertainment and without. The other caveat that we talked about a number of times in this body, was requiring food to be available in a drinking establishment. We had a number of people concerned about that. The probability that it would not be turned out to be cost effective. I was told that for a restaurant and would be about $200,000. So it was stated that would be a major concern. So I went through, sent a memo. Sabrina Michelle sent me some definitions. I found some other definitions reviewed. And I came up with on page 6, page 5. And these are kind of drinking establishments that were identified. We have a craft cocktails. We have a bar, not the bar that we used to. Brew club, microbrewery, tap room, winery, wine tasting establishment, and a wine or brewery, depending on what type of spirits they develop. I think of Barney's in Boise has a distillery right in a restaurant, but you may have one that's not a restaurant connected. And another issue is the murals. The current mural section of code is really passive in regards to what's required. With the help of Steve Jenkins from our economic development department, we have developed a process to review murals in the downtown. And so we've added that to the section of code that basically says that you must meet the review from the mural board to get their approval for a mural to be placed in downtown Kalvo. And the last one is regarding parking. Originally, I tried to look at ways to distinguish parking from residential and commercial. I decided to dismiss that at this time. We're on the verge of trying to put together a parking study for downtown. It's more like an inventory, if you will. Until we get that inventory completed and make recommendations, then we'll go back to looking at parking downtown. But that's parking in general. I have looked at the categories regarding land use and parking. We didn't change that much other than what's in the city center and what's in the central business district. So in regards to the ordinance, I want to point out a couple of things. first is that in the purpose of the Central Business District, scroll down a little bit more down. Okay, so we actually now have 11 items in regards to the purpose of the district. And we added 4 new ones. Strengthen and enhance the city of Caldwell Central Business Zoning District as the urban center of the county. Number 9, ensure that redevelopment for new projects are compatible with existing styles in its surrounding neighborhood. 10, maintain economic restructuring and business recruitment. And then 11, continue the promotion and marketing of the Central Business District. Our economic development department has been spending a lot of time in the city center and as well as throughout the city in promoting and implementing new businesses. So we felt that this needed to be included within this document. At the bottom of page 2, we actually have in meets and bounds descriptions of all the parcels that I've talked about: city center, Woodland corridor, historic district, as well as the Central Business District. On page 7, you see where I've broken the land use categories into Central Business District and City Center. We've arranged, we tried to clarify, which I think we did, and that's how it's laid out at this time. On page 12, we have a definition of all the drinking establishments. I think that's 10 now. On parking, page 16, we've just done some clarifications. Excuse me, 16 is the one that we removed and we added on page 17. Page 20 on signage. One of the businesses downtown 2 summers ago wanted to put in a dining sign on the wall of their building. Basically, that's identified as a dining sign that's not in the code currently, and we've added that. On page 22, at the bottom, number 11, regarding standards for murals. First 2 standards is currently, there was letter C, there was a question about size of mural, and the maximum was 200 square feet. We changed that to say based upon the size of the structure or the structure as a whole. D, it did not, the current code does not allow a business to put their name on the code, on their mural. I reworded this by basically saying that the business name shall not dominate the design of the mural. It'll be up to the review committee to determine what that impact is. And then E, basically states all murals shall be reviewed and approved by the public art management team. The members of that team include myself, Mr. Jenkins, Ms. Nisco. We have a member from College of Idaho, and we will get a mural. We will sit down as a group and review that with this documentation that I just mentioned, but also does it meet our requirements, which we say at the beginning of this chapter, that the content of the mural is consistent with the architectural, geographical, sociological, and historical content of the city center. Now, the next step for us is to add an ordinance to allow murals outside of the city center. But that's another story. So we'll do that another time. Lastly, I think what brings to your attention, or closer to last, is on page 24. This is the official Kalvo Store District. And so what I did was just identify what these spaces were in their addresses for more bit of identification. Before anything else, all the bigger properties are either built, will be built on, or in the process of going through a procurement process for new structures. So it's really not an issue of, I see causing any concern. And Mr. Mayor, that's my presentation. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Matt. Questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. McGee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Matt, I can tell after reviewing this and listening to your presentation that you've put a lot of time and effort into this, and I'm appreciative of that for sure. It's a complicated thing, and it's one, I think it's something we want to get right. We've done so much right in downtown right now with the plaza and the surrounding areas, and I just think that we're heading in the right direction. We're doing a great job. I just have a little bit of concern. I was trying to go back to the original presentation you made and trying to kind of compare the original to this one, and I was having a little bit of trouble keeping track of the changes that we've made based on city council comments and then public comments that were made that night. And so if there's an easier way for me to better understand that, that would be helpful. Frankly, Mr. Mayor and council members, I think this is kind of a keystone decision when it comes to what we're going to do next downtown. And although we have a quorum and we certainly can vote to approve this, we're missing two key members of the city council, and that gives me a little bit of concern on something like this. And I'm still receiving some business concerns, some concerns about what this might look like and what the unintended consequences might be. And so I'm man, I'm a little bit reluctant tonight to get too far down the path. I like the direction we're heading. I saw Mr. Matthews talked about the mural, committee tonight. I think that's a great idea. I'd like to hear some more, some more public comment about what that might look like. I'm just, man, with all the great things that are going on there, I just want to make sure we get this right. So that's my comments for now.
Ms. Whitney, did you want me to respond?
Mr. Matthews certainly can.
I can understand, as we've worked with this ordinance for these 3 years, close to 3, it's very confusing the way that it stands today. The example I gave you in regards to the parking requirements. The ordinance says right now that there's no parking requirements for residential in the city center. And mind you, the city center is all the downtown, not just what is actually the city center. That's just one example. I welcome any questions regarding that. There's some of the issues which I didn't bring up, was like a warehouse. I have warehouses not allowed in the city center. Well, it currently exists in the city center. It will always stay in the city center unless the use is vacant for 1 year. If you look around this country, most of the major economic development that goes on are in warehouses. And in those warehouses, they do mixed use. They do residential, they do commercial. Sometimes they have a little, they call them now, food halls. Those buildings have multiple use because of the size of them. I don't believe I eliminated any uses that will be contradictory to the city center. If I have, and someone, and I've explained all of those in this memo, but if I have, someone needs to say, this is the land use I'm concerned about that you are either approving or eliminating, why? And then I can respond to it, and then we have a discussion, but until I know the details, I really can't respond. I try to respond to every comment that was made at the last discussion we had on this. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Carlson.
Right now, Mr. Mapp, I think you have put in a definition of where the city downtown area is. I think that in the future we need to look at, because that footprint is a certain size, I think that we need to maybe look at extending it across the tracks. We have, when I come into Kalvo, come down 10th Street, I feel like I'm downtown. The same with 5th Street, there's a lot of businesses there. Kimball has some. There's a lot of residential in that area too. But this would give developers an idea of where we want to expand this downtown area. And I don't think we can make it too small.
Mr. Carlson, you're correct. What we're trying to do right now is clean up what isn't functioning right now. Phase 2.
Yeah. Anytime after 2.5 meetings from now.
Yeah. But I think, I understand where you're coming from. I can't respond because we have not researched that in a study.
Well, I understand, I'm just saying that we need to open our eyes in the future to that.
If I may make a comment, there's a couple things that are really pressing right now. One is the residential with no parking in the central business district, right? That's a huge issue. We don't have any place to put those people. And so that is something that was raised as a huge issue, and of course you also referenced the need to delineate between central district and city center and so forth, right? Because of the apartments that went in that you described, 12 apartments with no parking, right in the middle of basically some other residential units. So I'm almost wondering, because there's enough discussion about the overall size, Mr. McGee certainly has a legitimate concern about addressing this without Mr. Allgood and Mr. Wagner. And so there are some things there that I think deserve continued discussion. But I'm wondering, and I'm going to ask this to Mr. Schulte, there's a few things that we need to get fixed because we don't want to have another application with no parking downtown for residential because it doesn't work. It only exacerbates the existing problems that we've seen, right? I think we can all agree upon that. So if there are things that we can move forward on, and again, just because you establish the size of the district today doesn't mean that 90 days from now you can't expand it. So again, what I'm saying is I wonder if the best thing to do for now, just throwing it out there, is to clarify the existing problems that we have and then continue working on the ones that there's still some discussion about. I think you've come a long way, but again, I don't know what it's a council decision. I'm just throwing some options out there. But in the meantime, if we get an application tomorrow for residential downtown, but it's on Fillmore Street or on, whatever, there's no parking, no landscaping requirements, and it's a difficult proposition, right?
Right. And there's two other things that are pressing. The second thing, the next thing is regarding residential. That's kind of convoluted as well. And what we as a department has agreed on ourselves, that residential in the central business district should meet the R3 requirement. I know there are people who want us to allow no setbacks for residential, things of that nature, which is not there yet. And then the last thing is this issue on drinking. Is a brew pub, a cocktail lounge, all of those different definitions that I spoke to you about. Do they have to have a food entity with it? As we discussed, they have to be serving some kind of food. We haven't defined if food is a steak dinner or popcorn and pretzels. In addition, food trucks would be allowed in our current ordinance. Could they cater, have somebody come in one day and do hamburgers and somebody else comes and caters and does tacos? That's still, the issue of food is that part of an establishment of drinking establishment is still on the table. But I've been beaten up a couple of times because I brought that to your attention under your direction.
And again, this is legislative. So, legislative is a whole different ball of wax than quasi-judicial. I mean, even though we have sign-up sheets from previously, this is still legislative. If anybody wanted to sign up tonight, they still could. And so, it's an ongoing discussion where you want input. You want, from those who, Destination Calls has a huge, act to play in this forward, as we go forward. Certainly the Chamber of Commerce. So again, I don't know what the council wants to do. This is a very complicated issue and it keeps expanding the more we get into it. But I know that there are some urgent issues that need to be dealt with. And so maybe, and again, this was brought forward tonight as a public hearing, but no ordinance associated with it. So council couldn't even take action on an ordinance tonight if they wanted to. This is just a public hearing, right? There's no ordinance associated with it.
No.
So, tonight's purpose was to just continue to have this discussion. And so I'm wondering if the best thing to do from all aspects is to, not continue this public hearing, but to notice another public hearing with an ordinance and continue this dialogue with those who have shown interest, with those who have, I think you said you visited with Sabrina and several people that were, and you brought back suggestions. So let them see the ordinance, because we haven't, we've seen it briefly, but what I mean is there's no ordinance for, action by city council tonight. So, Mark, do you have any comment along those lines as far as process?
Yeah, Mayor, I think procedurally, because there's no action item on a piece of legislation tonight, you could continue the matter, and I'm interested in your thoughts about noticing up a new one, but you could, as long, it sounds like if there's sort of consensus among council, that maybe this needs to be broken out into a couple of different pieces of legislation. Something to deal with maybe more pressing and immediate issues where there might be more consensus or agreement. You could certainly instruct staff to bring back that bill for action at the next council meeting and continue this hearing, so that there would be opportunity for public input on a scaled down version of the ordinance. And then at that time or later on, the rest of the issues could be taken up. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
I don't know that there's a reason to necessarily renotice if all you're going to do is pare this down to discuss specific items that have already been raised in the draft.
I just didn't know because if it was different than, the original ordinance that was brought forward has been changed dramatically, after input, which is fine, again, because it's legislative. So I would just say we renotice, a public hearing for the scaled down version, so that we can have discussion on that and get it moving forward. At the same time, hold another workshop or whatever else on the rest of it. I don't know. I just want to make sure that, and again, Mr. Allgood had very, very definite thoughts and ideas about his concerns, especially on the drinking establishment side. It'd be nice to have him here to, discuss what his concerns are with this new bill. So these are just ideas. I'm just throwing them out there. Go ahead, Mr. Hopper.
I just want to jump in with a couple of things. I think maybe what we need to do is come back for the very urgent things that Jerome is struggling with some text amendments to add some clarity. Nothing that's a full revamp of the code, but whatever text amendments can quickly be put in place to solve his resident parking issues and the other imminent and urgent issues. The other thing that concerns me greatly is that we don't have any movement on the historic district, and we are about to build a creekside building that is sitting over the top of two lots that no longer will exist, but will be part of the historic district that's downtown. And I don't know if that's an encumbrance on the creekside project we don't want, or if it's a restriction on design review that we also don't want. And it seems to me that we need to invest in making sure that those vacant lots get excluded from the historic district, because it can affect what we're trying to do right now with that development project.
Mr. Hill. He's referring to lots 13 and 14.
1 and 12.
No.
1 and 12.
1 and 12, and
Oh, I'm
then
sorry.
11 would
12. I'm sorry, it's covered up. Yes, 1 and 12. Actually, 12.
And 11 would also be included in that, because there's nothing there now.
Yes, 11 would be the other one, yeah, so
Right.
According to SHPO, it's not an issue.
Okay. Can they put that in writing for us or something?
Yeah, I would need that in writing if I was going to build a building on that site, making sure that I wasn't going to be called into question that it didn't go through historic design review.
We'll start checking on that tomorrow. They said they're working to a study to take those pieces out. But interesting is that the person that we talked to regarding that has not SHPO. And we have a new person, so it will maybe to our advantage to get his opinion on that as well. So,
And we may have to go around SHPO and do our own assessment, our own inventory, if you will, and redraw the borders ourselves, simply because if SHPO doesn't help us, that doesn't solve the problem.
And obviously, number 12 doesn't even exist. It's a
we
very
will
busy
research
stretch.
to find out what can be done.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Mark, what is your suggested course of action? Because if there's, again, we're missing 2 council members that need to be involved, certainly.
I think, Mayor, you could certainly take testimony tonight. I think there's people who've shown up to speak. But I think that the hearing should probably be continued, and if council's inclination is to narrow this down, let's identify what would be the those first ones for staff to look into and resolve, and maybe that could be continued until December 6th. And then I think in the meantime, with respect to the rest of it, maybe staff can, get together and decide whether, that the rest of it could be brought forward on the 6th, at the continued hearing, or maybe that does get, re-noticed maybe for the December 20 meeting, something like that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think what Mr. Hilke just described is probably a good course of action, considering the conversation we just had over the last 2 minutes. I think breaking that out, taking care of the things that need to get done quickly and immediately, and then separating that from some of these other issues that feel like they need a little bit more discussion. I think that's a good course of action.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Any other comments from council? Okay, yes, Mr. Carlson.
I would make a motion
I
that
think,
we,
just a second, I think we want to just see if anybody wants to
And
comment this hearing.
just to make sure I'm clear, what we agree here is that our break this down in small sections, and ones which are more important to our office. We'll be looking at the historical situation. I think those are the major ones, so.
Okay, thank you. And again, sorry, Mr. Carlson, but we'll take that in a second. So based upon the conversation, Mr. Genke, did you want to add anything?
I guess we'll say something very briefly.
Sure, go ahead. You're here and you.
I'm here, like,
You're here.
I just love seeing all friendly, happy, smiley faces, although it's, I think there's only a couple more weeks before we're gonna miss you, Mr. Mayor, and all that stuff. But, this thing is a wholesale rewrite of a piece of an ordinance that, we've seen, a number of times now, and it's completely different from what we saw. And I'm just curious where the urgency to get this done is. I've been mildly engaged in this process, but there's also a lot of other business owners who, I'm here and who've spoken to me and said that we don't like this, we don't understand what's going on, we want to be engaged, and we're not being engaged by the city. And so I would ask that we slow this down, put this on to, let the next council, let the next mayor deal with this, and then engage the business community in a broader sense. That's what I would.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Hilton.
Could you identify the witness for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Lee Genke, 712 Main Street. Sabrina Mitchell.
Hello, for the record, Sabrina Minshall, destination Kalvo, 119 South 7, Kalvo. Just a thank you. I think this version of the code, right, has a lot of great improvements. I would still kind of stand by original comments, but seems sometimes what happens is just like when you go to remodel a house, you're trying to fix the problems that we all agree are there, but every time you get into it, you get deeper and deeper, and pretty soon you've got a whole kitchen. So kind of the fact that we're there just means we need to make sure we spend a lot of time and get it right. The version that just came out, like I said, has a lot of great improvements, but ourselves and the business community got it Thursday. So we're also still trying to look through and figure out what kind of improvements are there, what can we support, are we quite there? I do also want to agree, though, that there are some urgent issues that need to be addressed. Parking is one. There might be a much simpler way to do that through the parking zones, which was in one of the versions where Mr. Mapp set up parking zones that had different requirements. We would be very supportive of that.
we're also very supportive of having the conversations around how do we get it right with drinking establishments and our mix of businesses and making sure it's consistent with the vision that we all have. There's just so many different ways we can do that. And so we just want to make sure that we give our developers of all types assurance and they know what to expect. Because really for our developers, and speaking for the business side, for the business improvement district, time is money. So if we change it and then have to change it again, that's gonna be more difficult than just making sure we take our time and get it in a way that provides certainty of what that is. I think that's true for the boundaries as well. I think, Councilman Coughlin brings up a great point that there are some boundary things what we wanna grow into, just to make sure we're consistent. So I think what you're describing is a good process. I'm not sure that the 30 days into December is gonna get us there in terms of the overall ordinance, but I would be very, helpful to wanna come in and say, there's certain things, specifically, I think parking and even the residential uses in an outside zone could be done without having to do full rewrite. Then we could be able to look back at both comprehensive plan and perhaps even something like a form-based code that would get us there with those mixes, that would help the businesses. So, thanks for the time and thanks for continuing to work on it. We know it's a lot of work.
And Sabrina, thank you, because I think what you just described is what I was trying to describe, is let's take care of the urgent issues, and then give the other more time to percolate, and I think I even mentioned another workshop along the way.
Right.
And again, legislative is much different than quasi-judicial, you can work through it and continue to take input and continue, you know what I'm saying, and, but the one thing that I'm just gonna say it, because it's, this ordinance will never be broad enough, wide enough, that it will make everybody in the world happy.
Absolutely.
And unless it takes 22 years and then, I'm just being facetious, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
At some point in time, hopefully it will move forward, because there are some things that are very urgent. I'm not talking about the parking, whatever, just to get those, get definitions for drinking establishments, because we have all kinds of brew pubs and whatever that wanna come to downtown. It's been a huge success. This is a nice problem to have, by the way.
It is a nice
It's a
problem.
really good problem to have. But again, it bears discussion, and I'm not debating that at all. But I'm just saying that, hopefully we can get it as close to being right, but unfortunately, I don't know that we can ever get anything exactly perfect, without taking so much time that then it just becomes outdated. So at some point in time, there will have to be a decision made, but I guess it probably won't be while I'm sitting here, it sounds like, but we'd like to at least get those, those urgent matters taken care of. So you just said it more eloquently than I did. So,
All fair.
what she said is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, mayor and council, all fair, and I think by no means are we suggesting that we just keep analyzing on it or we get paralysis out of it. We are gonna have to pick a path and go. I think it's just important to make sure that the path we pick is consistent with the vision that council and our business community is looking for, and there might be ways to do that. I mean, I brought up Ogden limits bars by block, so you don't get a ton. So there might just be other ways to get what the vision is, so I think we're getting close. I think we're getting super close, but we just need to make sure that even like our titles are consistent with what we mean by drinking establishment live entertainment. So it's a work in progress, and thanks for letting us be a part of it.
I do appreciate your comment that there are some major improvements there, and so I think Jerome really tried to incorporate, everything he heard from those conversations, and I think, visiting with all three of you, if I'm not mistaken, that we're here to testify. So thank you for acknowledging that, and we'll keep trying and try some more, okay? All right, Chris. I can't see behind the podium, is Chris here? Okay, all right, I'm sorry. There's a lot of people right over there that unless you're tall enough, like Lee, I can't really see who you are, so that's the only bad thing about having the podium right there. All right, with that then, Mr. Carlson.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we continue this, workshop to the next meeting, December 6th.
Public hearing.
Public meeting with, December 6th with, instructions for staff to have legislation for the parking. Is that the only one?
Residential and parking, I think, were the two issues.
Residential parking.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Carlson, a second by is that Mr. McGee? I believe. All right, further discussion?
That's right.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 I heard two ayes, are there any other ayes? That's not enough to.
Third aye.
Okay, all right, that's enough to carry the motion.
There's a nay here.
Okay,
There are two other stuff, so.
okay, all right. All opposed, nay?
Yay.
Okay, we have, motion carries by a majority, And so this item is continued to a time and date certain, which is December sixth at 7 PM in these chambers, with the with the description as close as you can to dealing with those urgent issues that include parking and residential, and break those things down individually. And again, this is a public hearing, so that means we can still take testimony. Also, if you would please make sure, Mr. Mapp, that whatever you get out, gets to the business community and they can distribute it as quickly as possible so that they have the opportunity to review that. If I may ask a question before we go any further. Sabrina, are you sharing this with the chamber as you go along? Okay, just want to make sure, so that there's a conduit directly there. Okay. All right. Motion did carry by a majority, and this has been continued to a time and date certain, which would be, like I say, December 6th. All right, next item, item number 3, which is to consider resolution
Mr.
number...
Mayor, I just want to make sure my vote was recorded.
Yes, it was. It was 3-1, and then you were a nay. Yep. Item number 3 is an action item to consider resolution number 38121, authorizing the use of general fund contingency for the addition of 2 new police officer positions at the Kalvo Police Fire Department, Kalvo Police Department. I'm the one that actually brought this forward, and I wasn't here last time, as you know. We were dealing with the potential of what we thought might be COVID, and so we stayed home, so nobody else was subject to that. And I thank Mr. Allgood for conducting that meeting for me. After a couple of incidents recently that were high demand, on our police department, I talked, as I always do, I talked to the chief and the, captain afterwards to go through a debriefing. And, it was at the request of the police department that this year that we prioritized raises for the police department, which we did. Everyone in the police department over the last few months received a minimum of a 7% increase in pay. And some that were considered key personnel received even more than that, at the chief's and captain's request. We've always struggled with, because of the caps put on the budget by the legislature, we've always struggled with prioritizing either personnel and or raises. In some years, we've been able to do some of all three, fire, police, both raises, personnel, and dealing with equipment as well. As you know, House Bill 389 this year really affected the general fund by well over $560,000, which we had originally hoped last year by adding or doing raises and the things that we did, we would be able to add police officers this year. But again, at the request of the police department, we prioritized raises. So, after visiting with Frank and Devin, what we would like to do and talk to Carol, there is a way to get that done with existing contingency fund dollars, is to start the process, because as you know, it takes a while to get from A to Z when you hire new police officers. It is, you have to first go through the application process and the background and polygraphs, and it takes a while, and then go through post to get them on the force and work. So even though we are only a month and a half into this year's budget, I did visit with Carol. I visited with Council President Allgood, both as a past police chief as well as current council president. And of course, I visited with a couple of the council members, but we felt it was important to get this started. So the resolution I'm asking you to consider tonight is to authorize the use of general fund contingency for the addition of 2 police officers to get that process started. So that's basically the presentation. Mr. Pollard.
Well, I apologize if I'm jumping the gun, but I was going to make a motion to approve this resolution.
You certainly can, if that's what you want to do. I'm done with my presentation, so I didn't have a chance to ask for any questions, but we can take a motion and then ask for questions. So go ahead, Mr. Pollard.
So I therefore make the resolution to approve 381-21.
Thank you. A motion to approve resolution 38121, authorizing the use of general fund contingency for the addition of 2 police officers. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Carlson. Any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Pollard?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Resolution passes unanimously. And then what you will see, obviously, for every 2 officers, we need to have 1 car. We wanted to make sure that, this passed, and if we do, then at the next meeting, we will also see a resolution to authorize, contingency fund, fund balance to purchase the police car associated with the 2 new officers. Yeah. All right. It has been requested that we take a short break between old business and new business items, so, with your indulgence, we will declare a short recess from, before we take up new business item number 1, we will reconvene in 5 minutes.
You're sporting the beers these days, huh? I like it. Go a little longer than we did together, huh? You wanna know? My wife is a nurse. There is literally a methodology for stitching headphones back together. Just tying the hair together across the room. Instead of taking it off and trying to butterfly it or stitch it. It's kind of cool. That's interesting. Yeah. That way you don't look like we bought our house. Hey. All right? Yeah, how about you?
So you guys are advising
Yeah, right? Oh, yeah. And that, That's wrong. Well, maybe I should be ready to click back again. If it jumps ahead, I don't know why it was doing that.
You're not recording again, are you? No.
Only if I really like
All-nighters?
Hey, Frank?
I know what's going on with the game, so I'm not gonna say it's right here. Hammering around. I am. You? No. $15 million? No. Been a long time. Do you hunt this year? Didn't make it up there?
Have you,
Hey, Jeremy.
Yes, sir?
You doing something different with your hair?
You know, I made sure it was nice and shiny for you there. Right. You expecting another one?
at least half the hour.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Good for you.
It's not impossible. Makes it kind of.
Hey, you know, I get it. You make it even dozen. Actually, we see the plan.
Yeah,
Oh, you do?
I live right
Well,
across the street from
okay, I thought you guys
I
had
mean,
a lot.
right in the middle. Yeah, so we lost.
You're losing a lot of rooms for, roundabout too,
Yeah, but we're thinking about. Well, you know, yeah, right away, we just went ahead and. Nice. We're my, it's kind of like the public works director legacy. You
gotta do it.
Blue State, about 30 feet from the center of the road.
Jeremy, how you been?
Hi. It's probably the 30-foot center. Bad approach.
So I don't know.
You still working, Tom?
Yeah.
Are they putting curb gutter sidewalk?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I know that.
Yeah, well, we're on the same list.
You're not doing it.
No. My neighbor to my right, myself, the neighbor to the left of city limits because he made a mistake and,
One, still just one child or two?
so the neighbor on that, so the house beyond that is not city limits, so there's five properties that front the street. The corner of it, that used to be the Thomas one. First corner.
That's the one with all the.
Has a business there now, and the stucco roof is.
All that in there.
Well, it has a business.
You know,
You wanna see where the stakes go.
I've always heard that,
Yeah.
children like that are never given to cowardly
To the
parents.
south and to the east.
You've got to be upfront
The three corners
person,
have
right?
nothing on it.
You and your wife can do it.
I know we've given. On both sides.
Indiana, and you see that roundabout. For half an hour, he was coming saying over and over. Lake one is also to the north. Not many people realize that, so I try that all the time. So you can offset roundabouts. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your patience during that short break. We just completed, all the old business items. We're now to new business item number 1. This is a quasi-judicial public hearing, and I'll explain how those work. There are sign-up sheets here to my right, and for these, you do have to sign up if you want to speak. And the clerk will also swear you in here in just a moment. So if you're here for item 1, 2, or 3, and I believe item number 4 is the one that we're going to continue, right? So these all 3 are quasi-judicial public hearings, so if you would like to speak, please sign up to the sheets on my right. And again, the clerk will swear you in here in just a moment. We will open the public hearing, and the first thing we will do is ask staff to make a presentation regarding the request. Once that presentation has been heard, then we take testimony by the applicant or their representative first, and then all those who have signed up in favor of the proposal, then those who may have signed up that are neutral or just have questions, and then those who have signed up in opposition to the proposal. After all of the public testimony is given, then the developer or their representative has the opportunity to provide rebuttal testimony based upon the evidence and testimony given during the public testimony portion of the hearing. Once that is completed, then certainly staff or counsel can ask questions of staff or any person who has testified. Once they are satisfied, then they begin the deliberation process first by closing the public testimony portion of the hearing. Then they move forward first by adopting an evidence list that I will provide for them. Both the attorney and I keep track of the evidence list as we go forward, and as long as the attorney gives me the okay that I've done it right, then we'll ask them to approve that. Then we move forward in the following manner. First with the evidence list approval, like I said, and then a comprehensive plan analysis, then findings of fact, conclusions of law, and then they render an order of decision based upon all of those things as we move forward. Of course, the order of decision can be to approve or deny, or they can continue to a time and date certain if they feel like they want to go back and open up the public testimony portion of the hearing and get more information. So, that all right with everybody? You understand how that goes? I know it's clear as mud sometimes, but that's the process. I will certainly be happy to help you through it. Now, once we get started into a quasi-judicial public hearing, though, there is a specific set of process that I have to go through. So if you raise your hand and I don't call on you or something, don't feel ignored or that I'm trying to be rude. It's just process, all right? And hopefully we can get that to you at the appropriate time. Any questions on the process before we begin? Okay, if you have signed up to speak at items 1, 2, or 3, including staff, if you would please rise, raise your right hand, and the clerk will swear you in.
You swear affirm the testimony you provide tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
All right, so as you come forward, there's a little cheat sheet there. But if I call you forward, if you'll please give us your name and address for the record, and then also just acknowledge that you have been sworn in, if you would please. All right? Okay. So the first item, excuse me, is known as case PUD 21-000003 and subdivision 21-00011. This is a request by Toll Southwest LLC for a planned unit development for Cerro Ridge subdivision on 104 acres in an R1 low-density residential zone. The proposed development includes 326 residential lots with a gross density of 3.13 dwelling units per acre, with a net density of 5.40 development units per acre. The subject property parcel R32856 is located approximately 915 feet north of the intersection of 10th Avenue and Orchard Avenue intersection adjacent to Mallard Park, Kalvo, Idaho. The hearing examiner forward this case with the recommendation of approval as conditioned on September 14, 2021. I will declare this public hearing open. Ms. Root.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Debbie Root, Senior Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, and I have been sworn. We are here for this public hearing to consider an application for a planned unit development, Cerro Ridge. The application is for the planned unit development and a preliminary plat for that development. The subject property is currently zoned R1 low density residential. Is located along the south boundary of Caldwell city limits. It surrounds the Mallard Park on 10th Avenue, and the southern border is Orchard Street, and then the eastern boundary is Montana Avenue.
I'm going to have you pause for just a second, if I may. I just noticed that there's no one signed up in favor, which I'm assuming the developer would be in favor, I'm guessing. Is there somebody representing the developer here tonight? Can I talk you into signing up and giving me your name and address, just so I have it on the record, please? I thought I'd better get that before we get too far down the road here. I apologize. I saw you stand and be sworn in, but... All right, thank you, and sorry, Ms. Root, I just noticed that.
No, that's absolutely appropriate. Again, this is a planned unit development application. It must meet a minimum of 2 of the 5 requirements to be considered for a planned unit development application. It is not a mixed-use application. It is wholly residential in an area that is also residential in nature. It is surrounded by county properties and city properties. And, it, does meet two of the criteria. Staff feels that it, provides for a variety of housing choices in that they're providing, quite a number of lot sizes and the availability of smaller, sized units versus, larger, actual, kind of estate-sized lots in some cases. But, they're all single-family residential units. It is not attached, units, but, we do feel like they meet that variety of housing choices, and we feel like they meet the, adjacency to the city park, providing for pathway connectivity off of the primary roads, transitioning lot sizes to take advantage of the elevation and scenic vistas of Lake Lowell with a really nice development. They're proposing 326 units on 104 acres, with an overall proposed gross density of 3.13 units per acre. This is, actually nearly what they would be allowed for an R1 single-family residential density, development. And they have not, maximized or even proposed to maximize the number of units that would be available, through a PUD, which would be 6 units per gross acre. And, they've provided for, widened streets, significant, open space, connectivity throughout the development, connections to Mallard Park, to utilize, you know, the city's, amenities that are there. They've also provided for amenities within the development, a number of pocket parks and open space, clubhouse, tot lots, and things within this development. At the hearing with the hearing examiner, there was some number of concerns about the adjacencies with the, and transitions with the county properties, which require half-acre to acre lots in that area. But those lots are also only serviced by well and septic. That's why they have to be larger lots. There was a lot of concern with the smaller lots and number of units on this property. We feel that they are well within the tolerances of what the land use allows for. They, again, nearly the acceptable gross density of an R1 development, which is what the property is zoned and has been zoned for some time. They've worked with staff to identify, the pathway from Montana Avenue to the Mallard Park, making that connectivity along Cirrus Drive, or proposed Cirrus Drive, off of the primary public roadway, while still having to provide for, sidewalks and connectivity within the development, micro pathways, major pathways. It's proven to be what we feel is a, well-planned, planned unit development. They've worked well with us. Toll Brothers has put together a good plan. They're, consistent with the comprehensive plan. They're consistent with the current low-density residential for PUD and for the zoning itself. Although there is, again, some opposition from the, surrounding adjacent, county properties, the hearing examiner forwarded this with a recommendation of approval, and staff is also, recommending approval with this development as conditioned. There will be a development agreement as part of this. Has been reviewed by Canyon Highway District and, the engineering department. There is still some, concern on Canyon Highway District's part with some, visibility at the access points. They must work in concert with engineering. Rob McDonald, drove out to the site. In a phone conversation with me, we took measurements, and he viewed those, access points and did not think there would be a problem with them, but that will be addressed as we move forward. There has been a TIS done. There was not, concerns with that and overloading of the traffic and infrastructure. We hear that a lot throughout any of these applications, that traffic's just getting horrible. Well, the population has increased significantly. Development in this area has increased significantly as developments that were approved, several years ago were extended, and now we're building out, and so there is some, growing pains in the area, but, the traffic impact study hasn't identified anything except out at the intersection of Karcher and Montana, and that, are being looked at as those development plans and widening projects are occurring for Karcher. That's the question.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Colson?
I guess I don't know if I have a question or not, but I do have a statement. It just saddens me that we take a piece of property like this that could have been total estate property and butcher it up with a PUD. There's so much possibility here with the view and everything of the lake and everything, and we're just trying to, I don't know, I said my piece. I'll just stop there.
I second that.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. This property was initially identified for residential estate, and at some point, before I came, this council determined to, allow these properties to be rezoned to R1. The developer has, made an effort to make those transitions to that and to retain, an R1 feel to this. Again, decisions were made prior to us that created an R1 property in what was at some point intended to be residential estates for many of these properties in the area.
Well, I agree that there are projects that a PUD is really the only way to do it, but here is an opportunity to do a nice R1 subdivision, and we're gonna do something different with a PUD.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Root?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Hopper?
Ms. Root, I'm trying to decipher the preliminary plat maps, and I know you mentioned that there's a major public, pathway connection to Mallard Park as the master plan calls for right through this project, but I'm not seeing it. I guess you kind of have to show me what is that pathway, and I can't distinguish between the roads or where the pathways are.
Okay, yes, Mr. Mayor and Councilman Hopper, the pathway, so, it's gonna be kind of a little bit hard to describe to you, on Zoom, but, Cirrus Drive, which is a, primary collector for, that cuts across the city's properties and will connect into Cirrus Point and over into Sienna Hills, as we move to the east. So Cirrus Drive is a connecting road that, is there. They have proposed the pathway and worked with Mr. Mapp and, and the Bike and Pathways team to, set the pathway, a 10-foot, concrete sidewalk pathway, along Cirrus Drive. They've widened that out, they've widened the, landscaping buffers for the detached pathway along this drive. And then right before it gets out to 10th Avenue, it will cut straight to the south to Mallard Park through these, what would be, you know, typical of a micro pathway, but it's a pathway and connecting into, and then into the pathway, within Mallard Park, which has been discussed. There was a condition added by the hearing examiner that the applicant would be responsible for making that connection off property, so on the city's property to that pathway that is, within Mallard Park, so that we get that provided connectivity right straight through there, yeah.
And so the connection will be off of Montana directly to Cirrus Drive. There won't be anything interior to the subdivision.
Yes, connection from Montana, which is where the pathway would come down once we cross, Carter Road. It would continue down Montana, and then it's going to cut into the development and down through, to Mallard Park, yes.
And the section on Cirrus is a detached sidewalk, detached pathway?
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions for Ms. Root? Thank you. Jeff Bauer? I think that's an R on the end, or is it plural?
Mayor Nancolas, Council, Jeff Bauer, address 601 West Bannock in Boise, and I have been sworn in.
Welcome.
Thank you. Here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Toll Brothers. With me from Toll Brothers tonight, Adam Capel and Ryan Hammonds, local managers for Toll Brothers. They are available to answer any development questions that I may not be able to. Before I get into the project itself, I do want to give the council just some brief background on Toll Brothers. They are an award-winning Fortune 500 development company. Toll began developing residential projects in the Treasure Valley in 2016, and we now have successful residential projects in Meridian, Middleton, Nampa, and Star. Toll's Idaho division is headquartered in Meridian, and they employ approximately 180 Idahoans there. So we're excited to bring this project to Caldwell. To my knowledge, this is our first entitlement in Caldwell, but we do have several other projects coming before you in the near future that we're also excited about. So tonight we're here about Passero Ridge. This is a vicinity map of Passero Ridge. As Ms. Root mentioned, we are bordered on the west by 10th Avenue, on the east by Montana, and on the south by Orchard. To the west of the project is the Cirrus Point subdivision, which is another R1 project that the city's approved already. And on your agenda tonight that got continued was a modification to that application that dovetailed with ours and helps to align all the collector streets as well. I'll get into that some more as I go on. So this is a 104-acre property, as mentioned, already zoned R1 and annexed into the city. Comprehensive plan designates this as low-density residential, so the zoning that's on there is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. As Ms. Root mentioned again, we have been working on staff, both planning and engineering for several months on this project. It's been collaborative, and we appreciate that. We have reviewed the staff report. We agree with planning staff's analysis on all points. We've also reviewed the conditions of approval from planning staff and the hearing examiner, and we agree with all the conditions of approval as well. With a couple caveats that I'll talk about at the end of the hearing, we want to bring up a couple of those conditions of approval and provide the council with some alternatives as well. So before you tonight is a PUD and a preliminary plat. The plat proposes 326 residential lots, 40 common lots. Our gross density, as Ms. Root mentioned, is 3.13 units per acre. So if we just went with a straight R1 subdivision, we would be able to have 3 units per acre. So we are just barely over what the zoning would allow today. And of course, the reason we're doing that is to provide a lot of open space amenities for our residents. That's really the goal of this PUD. It's not to make smaller lots or misconstrue the code. It's really to provide open space for amenities. On the lot sizes, the average lot size, again, consistent with the R1 zone, which has a 8,000 square foot minimum lot size. Our average residential lot size will be just over that at 8,061 square feet. We do have a product type I'll get into later on a much smaller lot, around 4,500 square feet. But lots will range from that 4,500 square feet to well over 20,000 square feet. Turning to open space, per the PUD ordinance, we are providing just over 10% qualified open space. So that's open space that is usable by the residents for active amenities. This is our open space plan. It's sort of in the center of the community is our main amenity, which will be a pool house with a pool, pickleball courts, picnic area. That's a 2.1 acre open space. And then throughout the community, on the south end and the north, and into the west as well, we'll have 4 additional parks that provide more open space and additional active amenities that I'll go through here in just a bit. In total, with the qualified open space, our buffers, landscape strips, about 20% of this site will be left as open space. There were some questions on the pathway system, so I'm glad we have this slide. The regional pathway that Toll will pay to construct and dedicate to the city is shown in red. So you can see it there coming down off of Montana in the northeast corner. It then runs parallel to Cirrus Drive, which is a collector road that Toll, again, will be dedicating, constructing to the city. And then it does turn south through some open space and then ultimately to Mallard Park. So that's the red line, the regional pathway. The blue lines are our network of internal local pathways. Those are the pathways that provide our residents with pedestrian, bike-friendly access to all of our open space. And so in addition to the red regional pathway, there's another connection to Mallard Park down towards the south of the site that you can see in blue. Few renderings of the site amenities. Here is a photo of the central amenity. This is the pool house, pickleball court, and picnic area. Another view. This is central to the community, sort of a focal point that Toll's proud of. Here are some more renderings of our pocket parks. You can see additional tot lots on 2 of those pocket parks, as well as other picnic areas and seating areas. Here's another rendering, I think, that shows a good job of how the pathways integrate with Mallard Park. It also shows the open space. the hearing examiner did require that toll provide off-site connections of our pathways, so the regional pathway that we've stubbed there in the map, we will work with the city to fully integrate that into Mallard Park, so that it doesn't dead end into grass, and we'll do that, per the hearing examiner's condition.
Is that the same thing on the bottom section,
Mayor,
closer to Orchard?
Mayor Nancola, council member Carlson, that is not in the conditions of approval, but we'd be happy to do that. So again, in accordance with the PUD ordinance that requires 4 active amenities, we far exceed that. I think we're closer towards 7 or 8 by my count. So Councilmember Carlson, this slide sort of goes to your comments. We are asking for a PUD, and the purpose of the PUD is to alter the required setbacks and the minimum lot size to accommodate those open space amenities that we know from our other communities are highly valued assets. People like the open space, they like the pools, they like the tot lots. So we're asking for some fairly minimal setback reductions to the rear lot line, interior lot line, and then we are asking for the minimum lot reduction with the PUD, and then lastly, from 50 to 40 feet on the lot frontage. Again, just as a reminder though, our minimum, although we are asking for a minimum lot size reduction, our average lot size will meet the R1 8,000 square foot standard. Touching on utilities real quick, I can answer more questions about this if there are any, but the short answer is we work with planning staff, public works, and all utilities are available to the site. Any upgrades that need to be made, whether it's our sewer lift station or pressure irrigation, will be made by toll at toll's cost and dedicated to the city. On the pressure irrigation system, we will be constructing a new well on site to provide that utility, and the city has asked that we stub that line to Mallard Park to help address some pressure issues at the park, and we've agreed to do that as well. As to roads, the TIS was prepared. We are in compliance with all of the recommended mitigation from the TIS, as well as city engineering and Canyon Highway District 4. We will be doing significant road improvements around our site, large areas of dedication on Montana, 10th, and Orchard. We'll also be constructing that whole section of Cirrus, which is a collector road that will ultimately, again, be dedicated to the city. On Montana and 10th, coming into Cirrus, we'll also be dedicating and constructing right-hand turn lanes per the city code standards. And just to kind of put a pin on roads and traffic mitigation, again, worked with city engineering, Canyon Highway District 4. We accept all of their conditions and all of the mitigation that they recommended throughout the process. Sarah Ridge is a 6-phase preliminary plat. We plan to start on phases 1 through 3 simultaneously as soon as possible in 2022, and pick up additional phases 4 and 5 in 2023, and the last phase in 2024, with we expect full build out in 2026. Turning to the mix of housing that we are providing to the PUD, we will be providing 3 housing types into Sarah Ridge. The first one is the Arbor Collection. This is a compact design on those smaller lots in phase 3. So these are homes that will be approximately 1,800 square feet in size on lots around 4,500 square feet. We expect these homes to be starting in the price range around the low 200s. And in other communities, these have been very popular with younger families as well as empty nesters. The second product type we'll provide is the Garland Collection. These are more of a traditional, single-family style home on larger lots. These, however, will be slightly smaller in size, so 1,200 square feet to 2,400 square feet. Expect these to start, and be offered in the low $500,000 range. And then lastly is our Woodland Collection. These, again, are your traditional single-family homes, larger lots, larger garages, square foot ranging from 2,200 to 3,000 square feet, and pricing from $650,000 to $700,000. So we have multiple styles of home, multiple sizes of home on different sizes of lots, with a very large price differentiation that we've done for the purpose of offering different products so that we can attract diverse residents to these different product types. That's my presentation for all of the project. I did want to talk to you about 2 conditions of approval, but if there are any questions before I turn to that, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for Mr. Bauer?
All right, now's the hard part. 2 conditions of approval. Condition 10.17 in the packet. This is a condition that requires off-site parking for lots that have 45 feet or less of frontage. So in phase 3, and I'll flip back to the phasing plan. So the northwest corner, phase 3, that's where this Arbor Collection is going to go. And those lots are less than 45 feet in width. So per the standard parking code, we would have to provide 1 off-site parking for each 4 of those units. So that would be 14 off-site parking spaces. We have the capacity to do that, but we're asking for a waiver from that standard tonight because we don't think it's necessary and we don't want to have empty parking lots. We want to have parks and open space. So to kind of prove up why this isn't necessary, we provided a graphic here. This is zoomed in on phase 3, and I'll try to point so you guys can see it. All along here, you can see on this slide, hopefully, that there are little gray rectangles on the street. We did have a parking study conducted to see how many on-street parking sites were available, in addition to off-street parking. So 56 units, each will have a 2-car garage with a driveway that can accommodate 2 vehicles as well. And that parking study found that there were 68 on-street spaces. So for that totals 292 spaces or 5.21 spaces per unit. So for that reason, we are asking for a waiver from that off-site parking standard. Again, we're happy to accommodate that, but we think it'd be better for the city and better for us if we didn't do the off-site parking. Second condition of approval we'd ask you to take a look at, maybe in a little more detail, is condition 10.4. This is dealing with the regional pathway. So the condition is that the regional pathway shall be concrete instead of asphalt. We would ask you to consider allowing the regional pathway to be constructed of asphalt. Again, happy to do it in concrete. Our basis for this is that in our other communities, we found that asphalt is a better overall surface for recreation. It's more forgiving and less harsh. We also noticed that per the city's pathway and bike route master plan, we are in the Lake Wolf corridor, and asphalt is an appropriate surface. So again, we don't mind doing the concrete. We prefer the asphalt, and we believe that it's allowed per the code and per the And that's all I have for the council and mayor, and thank you, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you. And for the record, the PowerPoint presentation will be labeled CC 1000 for the record. Any further questions for Mr. Jeff Bauer? Mr. Carlson?
Mr. Bauer, on the request for the asphalt versus cement, once that's put in, who maintains that? Is that dedicated to the city then, and we have to maintain the asphalt, or?
Mayor Nancolis, Councilmember Carlson, that's correct. The regional pathway is located in the right-of-way that will be dedicated to the city with the Cirrus Point collector. So it does go to the city for maintenance. And to be candid, I believe that was, planning staff's, basis for recommending concrete. I think it requires, perhaps requires less maintenance, but is more expensive to maintain when it does need it. But yeah, to be candid, I believe that was the basis for that condition.
Other questions for Mr. Bauer? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The only other person, oh, sorry, Rob, did you have a question, or John?
No, I can ask.
Okay.
Not right now, Mayor.
All right, thank you. The only person signed up to speak is Mr. Fife.
You're now on the city record. President.
Jeremy Fife, 15032 Kings Road Road, Caldwell, Idaho. I have been sworn in.
Welcome.
Welcome, thank you, I appreciate it. Mr. Mayor, council, I come as a neutral representative, neither for or against. I am on the board of the Dublin Estate subdivision that is going to be directly across from the phase 6 of this development. And also, if you don't mind, please pull up the satellite map, and that'll help out as well. So I want to say I come bearing gifts because I do have things on both for and against on these, and that may help the council's decision on this. First off, like I said, I am on the board of the Dublin Estates subdivision, and we are agnostic to this. We don't have a problem one way or the other, and the Dublin Estates should be, I'm sorry, I'm having some fun, right here, and this is my house right here. Right there's my house. So this is not going to affect anything that we do. But the big thing is, and I do want to point out that the county has just approved another subdivision to be put in this 40-acre lot right here. And this is going to add a lot of traffic to Orchard. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because with Cirrus Drive being pushed through right about in this area, it actually is going to help out those of us with kids that do go to Lakeview Elementary, which attaches to Cirrus further east. That would give us a second access point as opposed to having to go down Archer or going down Orchard, and it will help alleviate some of that. Now, it's probably not the ideal situation for this subdivision and its homeowners. However, it does provide my subdivision and the 3 parents that have kids the same exact age as mine, it does provide us an alternate route that will be potentially safer because we go slower speeds. We don't have to worry about the various other items that will go on, like the line of sight that happens on 10th and Orchard, and the traffic that is continuing to increase on Archer Road. The other item that I would like to discuss is per 7/10/21 of the Canyon County Planning and Zoning Rules, Table 2, Section 1, does allow, yes, I am reciting this from memory, please excuse me, it does allow for 1 acre lots on R1, and then if it is in the area of impact, and in obviously the city of Caldwell, it can go down to 12,000 square feet, and then can be reduced down by 15% thereafter to allow for green space. Now, the special use permit, which is being applied for, does allow down to that 8,000 square foot period. So I am a bit concerned that this is going to drastically affect, and I should also note that a true R1 designation sets for 60-foot designations, so that should give the council enough information on how much drastic reduction is occurring on these areas in order to make these 4,000 square foot plots work. So again, something to note on that. The other thing is too, and as we all know, with the Dairy Gold, fire, the fire chief has been very open in saying that he is heavily taxed in terms of, the number of firefighters he has and staffing in general. We have Station 2, which is with no traffic and green light all the way from Kings Row to the, Station 2, you're looking at 8 minutes. It's 11 minutes is what you have to be in order to, have a fully adequate, notice on reaching fires and being able to handle those, Councilman Paulson, as you will know. The one thing that, was brought up in the hearing examiner meeting was that the fire chief and the fire department was not represented, and they didn't seem to have anything for or against this. I'll make the argument that rarely do they ever show up. And we also know that our city, police are heavily taxed as well. We just saw that, 2 new positions were created in contingency, and the police office is still running on 7, officers per shift, which is below the standard of 9. So we do have these options or these areas that are still of concern, and we're going to add, multiple dwellings, 326 dwellings. The lot size, if you're going to get really particular, they can have up to 343, to maintain that 3.3 lot per acre standard. But neither here nor there. But again, I do want to make sure that it's well documented that, police and fire have notated that they are constrained, excuse me, in the local media, and this is going to add to that constraint. However, there are still some benefits, like we said, the addition of the sewer and pressurized water will take the strain off of my subdivision sewer and septic. Less likely that we're going to have some sort of contamination into that, especially since there are cattle roaming in that right now, and EPA guidelines are only increasing and they're not getting less stringent. So, again, probably a benefit to us in the long run. But again, I am neutral. I just want to make sure that both the positives and the negatives have been addressed, and you guys have the ability to weigh in on that. I know that it's not customary, but I will ask, answer questions if, the mayor and council so need.
Any questions from Mr. Pike?
Yes, Mayor.
Mr. Kalvo?
Mr. Pike, you made it a point to say that, the fire department does not make very many notices about that. And part of the reason for that is they already protect that area.
Sure.
And one fire, one at a time. It wouldn't matter whether there's 300 more, I mean, it's gonna be the same situation.
Sure, absolutely.
Whether that's right or wrong, this board here has known for 25 years that we are slow on policing, slow on firemen, slow on wages. But we do absolutely the best that we can, and you know that as well as I do.
Yeah, no, understood, and I'll always appreciate that.
Any other questions for Mr. Pike?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Pollard?
first of all, help me to understand, Jeremy, you used to be on council, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I thought so. You looked a little different, but but I look different too. First of all, I appreciate your comment, and you know, in addition to police and fire, I'm always concerned. We never seem to hear about anywhere from the school district about how development will affect the school pool. And that's always a concern of mine. So in addition to police and fire and traffic, we all know what traffic's like here. I would love to be hearing more from our school district about how the developments will impact the local schools.
I don't think that was a question or any statement. Okay. Anything else from Mr. Pollard?
That was just a statement, it
Yeah.
wasn't a question.
That's what we thought, we discerned on this end. Any other questions? Comments? All right,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, council.
good night. All right, that goes back to the, rebuttal testimony, if there is any. I'd like to comment about any of the questions or
Mr. Mayor.
issues that have been raised, yes.
I did have someone approach me about wanting to testify after the sheets have been taken up. And are you willing to accommodate somebody else who wants to sign up and testify?
I don't know, that was explained, I think, pretty clearly at the beginning, but, and this is quasi judicial, so it's not, it's different. But you could tell me.
I think it's legal if you want to do it.
Okay, that's fine. I just don't want to break any of the rules.
Understood.
Okay. Who wanted to speak? I didn't have the opportunity, so. Okay. She'll have to be sworn in, so.
As neutral? You want to speak as neutral or in opposition? Opposition.
Okay. There you go. And then she'll have me sworn in.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Want me to repeat that? No, I'm gonna swear on myself, or am I gonna swear to God? You swear or affirm. Okay. That the testimony you provide this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Yeah, all right.
All right, if you'd give us your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Julie Heigl. My address is 1519 Toscana Way in Caldwell.
Welcome.
Thank you. This is my first time coming to a city meeting, so, Mr. Bypass, awesome, thank you for shushing me. I love the Toll House Homes, it's beautiful, it's a nice neighborhood. I see good things in regards to the development. And I recently moved across Karcher from Four Seasons over to Sienna Hills. And, I'm so glad that the development is happening because I would not be here, on the other side of the track if, the development wasn't occurring. I do have a couple of, reservations in regards to, the police and the fire that has already been discussed, because, yes, the police and fire have been taxed, and you add 326 more homes, times 4, you know, maybe 4 to a household, or 8 to a household. That puts, more, burdens on the police and the fire department, so you can't say just one at a time. Remember, Paradise just burnt down, and we had tons of smoke coming through all summer. And with that, the irrigation was shut off really early, in Caldwell, because we are lacking water. Not only here, but also in, Ada County, they're running down low on the water, on, the water table. And those are some concerns, and also, where are these kids gonna go to school? I mean, shouldn't the people moving into this area also have a designated school that they could build, like on that little square area on the right-hand side near Montana that hasn't been spoken for? Or, you know, somewhere close by where, it'll accommodate the family instead of, raising taxes again and then building more schools. Our schools would probably go to code. But with COVID knows, maybe more people are homeschooled. But those are my concerns. Also, phase 3, I did not like that. It was all way too squished in and crowded. And I'm very sorry that there's gonna be, multi-use homes, family homes going in there instead of the estates, like Mr. Colson said, 'cause, man, I love walking around that Mallard Park and seeing the view. It's just beautiful, with the lake, so it'd be nice if, it wasn't so dense in that, and the setbacks. Yeah, that phase 3 really bothers me, with the parking and cramming them all in there, yeah. Those are my concerns, and thank you for listening, mostly about the schools and the police. Let's hire more police, give them all raises, and the fire department too.
And then you'd scream at us because the taxes would really be too high. Thank you for your comment.
You're welcome. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Heigl? Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Heigl? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, back to Mr. Bauer.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Jeff Bauer, 601 West Bannock, and I have been sworn. I'll be brief. Before I launch into rebuttal, my team mentioned that I misspoke fairly egregiously on one topic. I said our arbor collection homes would start at 200,000. I meant to say 400,000.
I was gonna say, sign me up.
I want to correct the record there.
And my brother.
I saw them both look at each other, I said, oh, well, that's something new.
I already had, because $200,000 is unheard of.
Yeah.
So I thought there might be something wrong there.
Well, thanks for not interrupting me.
Everyone can get one mistake.
Thank you.
I had mine earlier, so we're in.
Perfect. Well, I don't have a lot to add in rebuttal, except this. We agree that, the Mallard Park is a great city park, a beautiful amenity. That's why we've chosen this site for this project. And, if you'll notice, none of our arbor collection homes abut the park. These are gonna be the lots that are closer to the average 8,000 square feet, allowed in the R1 district. As to water use, the current use on the site is agriculture. It's currently being farmed. Our experience is that when we bring a project in like this, we actually use about 1/3 of the water that is currently being used for agricultural purposes. So this will be a water light use compared to what's currently there. Fire, schools, police, all those agencies were provided with a request to comment by planning staff, and we didn't receive any comments. So we have not been able to respond to any concerns, because none were raised. We will be paying impact fees, of course, police, fire, parks and rec, as well as paying our fair share and then more of property tax. We do think this product, all of these products will be slightly above to fairly significantly above the median home price in Caldwell. So this project will generate significant property tax revenue. Notwithstanding the complications of House Bill 389, it's my understanding that the city, on November 1st, I think, made a resolution and passed an ordinance finding that the budget at this point was at a threshold that the 8% cap would no longer really affect the city of Caldwell. So I think it's fair to consider that this will be a large property tax generating project. That's all I have, and I stand for any additional questions that you might have.
Thank you. I will make one minor correction. What we decided is that our growth is fast, or we're getting to a total assessed value now, for at our current rate of growth, it would be very difficult to hit the 8% cap. Still, if we do, it will affect us dramatically. So I just don't want to have any misinterpretations about what that was. But, you know, like Boise, Meridian, Nampa, I don't think any of those would hit the 8% cap. lots and lots of growth, and so we're finally getting to that point. So I just wanted to make sure that that was stated properly.
Great, thank you, Mayor, that was my understanding, I'm sorry if I misstated it, and I'm happy to hear that, because I know it's very difficult to plan around.
Yeah, again, that's, who knows, that's a guess. You know, if we get, two large manufacturers and they hit us all in 1 year, that can blow us out of the water too. Okay, but thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bauer? I have to wait for the Zoom folks, I still wanna. All right, hearing none, that concludes all the testimony for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is council ready to, move forward with the decision-making process, or do you have questions for staff or someone who's testified?
Mayor, I just have one question, and I do realize that here in Idaho, we have, people that like each other and everything, but, you know, in other areas of our nation, these pathways going through residential areas has caused a lot of problems. People have been killed doing this sort of stuff, and I just wondered if we're creating a problem here in the future. I don't know.
I don't know how to answer that question.
I don't either.
Other than pathways, as we currently see them,
I
are
guess
very
we'll see.
positive and very, you know, family-oriented, walking activities. So I don't have a crystal ball to answer that question.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody does, but.
I was just thinking.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanna, I'd like to address the condition about the asphalt pathways. The concept of an asphalt pathway, I think, in our, and I'm speaking for myself, not necessarily the pathway committee, but I think this is the sentiment. The intent is that an asphalt pathway that is landscaped and is a corridor in and of itself for a pathway, the asphalt was the appropriate response. In this case, they are proposing that there is a pathway that replaces a sidewalk that is extra wide, that is in the frontage of homes along a roadway. Seems to me to be appropriate to be concrete and not an asphalt sort of presentation. So I just want to make sure I got that kind of statement on the record. It seemed to imply that the pathway vision was to be everything asphalt, and that's not necessarily true. I think in this case where you are trying to do a pathway where it is where it is not separated from the residential area significantly by landscaping or fencing, that is much more appropriate for it to be concrete.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions before we go on, Mr. Kalvo?
Mr. Mayor, the other request from Mr. Bauer was the parking space for the narrower lots. I would like to hear everyone else's thoughts in regard to that, if they have an opinion.
Well, here's what I'm just gonna speak from what I've seen in subdivisions with very small frontages, is that it becomes a bit of a obstacle course when there's so many vehicles parked in the roadway, when there's so many vehicles that are, you know, blocking or infringing on driveways just to get them parked close to the residents. You know, I think the off-site parking requirement was not out of line and should be considered seriously as staying in this development agreement.
Other comments or thoughts? All right, we've reached the point then. Is there a motion then to close the public testimony portion of the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. A motion by Mr. Carlson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Pollard to close the public testimony portion of the hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. All right, I would present for your approval, the evidence list as follows. I have the staff report, sign-up sheets, the PUD plat and design, the aerial of PUD 21, and CC 1000, which is the PowerPoint by Jeff Bauer.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the evidence list as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second by Hopper.
Thank you. Motion by Carlson, second by Hopper, to approve the evidence list as presented. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 I believe I heard another aye in there. Any opposed? Nay? Motion carries unanimously. All right, then we would move forward with the comprehensive plan analysis.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Carlson.
I would move that we accept the comprehensive plan analysis under Roman numeral 5 in the staff report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second by Hopper.
A motion by Mr. Carlson, second by Hopper, to approve the comprehensive plan analysis as found in the staff report under Roman numeral 5. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Real quick, Mr. Hilty, a PUD is a subdivision, so the PUD / SUB is all considered in one action, correct? I just wanted to make sure that I didn't, again, mistake the rules, so, okay, thank you. All right, so the comprehensive plan analysis has been approved unanimously. I would ask for council's findings of fact.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Carlson.
the Kalvo City Council accepts the facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and evidence list, all adopted city ordinances, standards, and codes were used in evaluating the application.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second by Hopper.
Thank you. Motion by Carlson, second by Hopper, to approve the findings of fact as stated. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 I didn't hear anything, Mr. McGee, I didn't hear anything from you.
I'm an aye.
Oh, okay. You were usually pretty loud, so I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. I would ask for council's conclusions of law.
Mr. Mayor, the Kalvo City Council has the authority to hear this case in order that it be approved or denied. The public notice requirements were met, the hearing was legally noticed and posted, and the hearing was held and conducted under the requirements of the Idaho Code and city ordinance.
Thank you. Is there a
Second
second?
by Hopper.
A motion by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Hopper, to approve the conclusions of law as stated. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 I think I heard all ayes. Any opposed? Nay? Motion carries unanimously. Order of decision?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Carlson.
based on the findings, facts, and conclusion of law, the Kalvo City Council hereby orders that case number PUD 21-000003, SUB 21-000011, request by a planned unit development and preliminary plot for Cirrus Ridge subdivision with 326 single-family residence lots and 40 common lots on approximately 104 acres, and a designated R1 low-density residential is approved with all the conditions listed in the staff report.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just for clarification, there was discussion during testimony about connecting that southerly path into Mallard Park, and I think the applicant's willing to do that. We want to add that as a condition.
And including the southern, pathway to Mallard Park.
Okay. We have a
Move
motion
the
by
offsite, pardon? That's an offsite improvement, right? Is that what we're saying,
Correct.
It'll have to be connected inside of Mallard Park.
And I believe you stated that you would, okay, yes, that is the same one, Mr. Hopper.
Yes, second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Hopper, for approval of PUD 21-000003 / SUB 21-000011, with all the conditions as outlined in the staff report, as well as adding a condition for connection to the southernmost pathway into Mallard Park. Any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Carlson?
Yes.
Olive?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Hopper?
Yes.
I believe that's unanimous.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. And could we have a motion then to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Take a motion by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Hopper. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. All right, that completes that action then, and moves us to Item number 2, which is also quasi judicial public hearing known as case number PUD 21-000002, a planned unit, for a planned unit development and preliminary plat of Mino, also known or AKA subdivision on parcel number R27438, located on the northeast corner of Eustis Road and Florida Avenue. The development is proposed for 23 townhomes on 4.56 acres with a gross density of 5.04 units per acre. Each residential lot is proposed to be 24 by 66 with a square footage of 1,584 square feet. The subject property is zone R2, and the hearing examiner forwarded this case with a recommendation of approval as conditioned on August 24th, 2021. I will declare this public hearing open and ask for the sign-up sheets. And again, just to make sure, everyone that signed up for this did, oh, we lost most of it. Hi, Carl, how are you doing?
Good, Gary.
I didn't see you hiding back there.
That's all that weight I've lost.
You're just, mere shadow of your former self.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. I have 2 folks signed up to speak to this one. Was there anybody else that wanted to? All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Deb Root, Senior Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, and I have been informed. Again, we're here to consider a planned unit development for Minaka subdivision, a 23 residential lot development on approximately 4.5 acres, I believe. This property is currently zoned medium density residential, R2. It is a constrained piece of property in that it's triangular in shape. There is a canal along the northeasterly boundary of the property. It does sit on U-stick, which the access management plan basically prohibits access to U-stick from the property, and so that it takes access to Florida Avenue. This has been a long process with the developer in identifying a development that works for staff and the developer. It is very densely designed in staff's opinion, but and the open space is limited in that there will be a roundabout located on this property as well, on the corner of this property as well, which took a significant chunk of right-of-way. The canal cuts off a segment of the property in the southeast corner, whereby the developer will have to be required to place a pedestrian bridge in order to access that property as open space. Therefore, it cannot be counted as qualified open space, as they, although they were conditioned by the hearing examiner, they must provide the pedestrian bridge. They were reluctant to do so in working with the canal company and doing that, and that, you know, that it was cost prohibitive and that, and so they must landscape that property, but it could not be counted as a qualifying open space as they did not provide access to it initially. And so they did place their proposed amenities again in the southeast corner in a small triangle that would not accommodate an additional residential unit. Trying to utilize the property, again, it's constrained. It would be considered an infill property and therefore have some relief from the amenities that are required for the property. The hearing examiner, as he listened to this, and the idea that, we would like to see commercial uses on these, corridor properties and things for use. It's constrained for commercial uses as well, which we did have some interest, from different buyers on how, how to place some commercial uses in there. And again, the access management plan constrains the property and, the dedication of the right-of-ways and things for this. So the developer has worked hard to, provide for a, plat that works for them and within the constraints of the ordinance. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Again, it is an infill property, so it does meet the requirements for PUD under those, plans, of providing for, single-family residential attached homes. And, staff isn't making a recommendation one way or the other, but they are compliant with the, ordinance as, presented, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Greg, you have a plaque you can bring up? Yeah. Okay, because that does show a bridge going across there. So are you saying that is now not going to be built? And if it's not, then what is the access to maintain the landscaping for that area over there?
Yeah, no, so what was indicated to them was that they must provide the pedestrian or the bridge across that. It's not clear whether that will happen. We have not seen a license agreement. What was indicated to staff was that it was cost prohibitive to do that. It's also been indicated to staff that it's the intent of no, I'm not gonna go there. So, staff indicated that needs to be landscaped across there, because it will just end up being a, abandoned weed patch. There is some access from the canal road, which was proposed at one point as to how the people could take access from the church parking lot along the canal bank to that property, and we indicated that was not an accessible route. That would be essentially trespassing on the church property unless they had agreement with that as well. And so still requiring a license agreement with Pioneer Irrigation to make access to that property. The appropriate thing would be to provide for that connectivity across the canal to that property, or potentially options such as, selling or donating to the church the property, where it's connected to the property to the east. We don't know what that looks like, but leaving it as an abandoned weed patch is not necessarily what staff would like to see, and I don't believe that's what the city would like to see.
Thank you. Other questions for Ms. Root? Thank you. All right. Carl Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilman. I'm representing the developer in this. Been working with them on a couple of projects in the county. This has been a difficult project, having read and reread the notes. I have to hand it to project, is giving up over an acre to the, roundabout, both on Florida and U6, so that's limited, further the, ability to provide open space, with that. So, I think the, issue, the canal company, has been in contact. We are working on a licensed bridge over that. I think one of the conditions of, the project is you have to have that license put together before construction starts. We also have to wait for construction, before the roundabout. The roundabout has to be finished before we can start building, I believe is a conditional. So, any of the conditions we certainly, agree with. We have no quibble, with any of the staff recommendations on that project whatsoever. We'll be happy to sign a development agreement, with that. Just a couple other, issues that, wanted to compliment the, city. Rob McDonald worked real hard to get the access, figure out an access point on Florida. We had to move some, site parking, from the Florida side to the east, to accommodate that. It worked out really well. I mean, I have to say that a lot of cool heads prevailed in all this and collaborated on a strong plat for what we had to work with. So, with that in mind, I would open up for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Questions from council?
Not a question, Mr. Mayor, just a comment. I appreciate, Mr. Anderson, your difficulty with this. I think when we were looking at this area in the past, we've always assumed this would be a better commercial property, where you have a lot more freedom with the arrangements and don't have to deal with public streets and those kinds of things. But we appreciate that you've, stuck with it, and hopefully we'll find some solution. I guess I'm concerned mostly about, the lack of a solid plan for the attached, north of the canal piece. We certainly don't want, anything that is, isn't reachable and manageable, as part of that project to be left by the wayside. So I'm just wondering if we need to, solve that problem one way or another for sure, before we actually, bless it and end up with a condition that somebody's gonna come to us in the future and say it just can't be done.
We've actually mitigated that issue with the bridge over the canal, working with, Pioneer Irrigation and the, Boise project to get that license. And again.
Oh, so you do, yeah, okay, awesome, that's awesome.
We cannot start construction without that license in place, so, between the roundabout and the license, will be a while before we're able to break any ground.
So it sounds like, Mr. Hopper, that has been addressed. So.
Perfect. It sounded from Mr. Drew's testimony that it was still an open issue, so thank you, appreciate that.
Any other questions for Mr. Anderson? Unfortunately, no. Any other questions for Mr. Anderson from council?
I'd just like to say, this is what a PUD should look like.
Yeah, this is the intent of the.
Well, this is about the only, piece of ground that a PUD would work on. A normal subdivision process would not work with this.
I agree.
Way too onerous to get any sort of density and be able to be viable in any way, shape, or form, for either party.
Okay. Thank you, sir. You bet. All right, Mr. Harley. How are you, Gary?
I've been sworn in. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Colvin, and the other members.
And just state your name and address, just for the
Gary
record.
Harwood, 3918 South Florida Avenue.
Thank you.
I live right in the middle, directly across from this. If you go back to a previous, Hispanic, and no offense to ladies, one of these,
The green one will.
I'm right in the middle. There's 5 residences there on the west side. I'm the third one up, so I'm right there. On the map, on the plan map on the lower left, it's the one that, has the longest rectangle, right in the middle there. So, one of my questions is how many entrances were they gonna have to this? And I thought for sure they would have one on Ustick, and they would have one on Florida. But apparently they only have one on Florida, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And apparently it comes right across from my roadway?
If that's your house, it does.
Huh?
If that's the exit, yes, that's how it would fit.
Yes, I think that's pretty close to where it shows. Yes, right at the lower portion of your.
Yeah, I've got it's not my driveway, but it's my roadway that goes back to my property. One of the questions I have is, on the east side, most of the, street on Florida Avenue is sidewalk and gutter, and it stops right at the canal. Are they gonna keep that street the same width all the way through to the roundabout, crossing the canal? So on the east side, coming from north to south, through those subdivisions, there's sidewalk with curbs and gutters. But when you get to the canal, are they gonna make the culvert wider so they can continue the same width on, or widen out Florida? That's one of the questions I have, because I wanna know how far away from me, on the other side of the road, the subdivision, or these townhouses are gonna be.
Again, Grant, you'll probably have to address that, if it looks to me like a roundabout is going in, if I'm not mistaken, very soon at the corner of Houston and Florida. And so, obviously, a roundabout has a different, street width and right of way that is needed. So, I'm gonna ask Mr. Horton to answer that question, if you don't mind, so.
Mr. Mayor, with some kind, help from Madam Root, yes, the conditions of approval would require the culvert to be extended enough to bring the sidewalk across the canal, and as part of their frontage improvements. And you'll see that the property line for the subdivision extends to the north boundary of the canal there.
Because what happens when you head from north to south, as you get to that culvert, the street narrows because of the culvert itself. And I just saw my property, they came by a couple weeks ago and put some stakes in my ground. And one of them went through my heart because it's about 30 feet from the center of the road on my property is a blue stake, and I'm not sure what that is. So I'm out of the city limits. I'm assuming this is in the city limits. So I'm sure there'll be, once you get past the roundabout, there'll be curb and gutter on the east side. I'm on the west side. I want to know if they're also going to do curbs and gutters and sidewalk on my side, even though I'm out of the city limits.
Mr. Mayor, and council, so they would build, the roundabout will extend curb, gutter, and sidewalk some distance from the intersection. I don't know if that's gonna reach your property or not, but the development will build sidewalk only on their side.
And who can I find out how it's gonna affect me on my side?
Come and see us at 621 Cleveland, at the Development Services Building, up at Engineering, and we can show you the preliminary design for the roundabout.
That's what I wanted to find, because like I said, my questions were, one, if there were going to be 2 exits out of that, or if all of these were gonna be funneled out with 1 exit. Well, it's gonna be funneled directly out in front of me, which is right at the edge of where that roundabout's gonna be. When they come in with that roundabout, hopefully they're gonna build it like they did at Lake Avenue and have those dedicated right turn lanes that merge in. I don't know if it's gonna be like Indiana or if it's gonna be like Lake. But my big concern is where the traffic's gonna come out and what's gonna happen to my property.
With your permission, I'm gonna divert that back over to our Public Works Director.
He just told me right and go on.
Okay, all right, yeah, all right, thank you, sir. I apologize, I just don't know, but
Yeah,
that's
I've
the
been
guy
here
that does.
since '88, so this is kind of, frustrating, but it's nice that it's not a weed infested field any longer. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Anderson, any rebuttal testimony on?
I just wanted to make one point. I just want to make the point, the roundabout, is a separate issue than the, PUD, and we were pretty well locked into going on to Florida, as you can't gain access to that property from use to by code, so we're, pretty well dialed into what we can do, and we've tried to follow everything that, we've been asked to do with this, so I would certainly ask for approval of the project.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any final questions from council for either Mr. Harwood or Mr. Anderson, or staff? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion then to close the public testimony portion of the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Kalvo, second by who? Hopper, thank you. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
For years.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. I would propose for your approval, the evidence is as follows: the sign-up sheet, staff report, the aerial of PUD 21-00002, and then also the site plan of the same.
Mr. Mayor, move to approve the evidence as presented.
Thank you, sir. Second by Hopper. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. I would ask for council's comprehensive plan analysis.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Carlson.
I would move that we accept the comprehensive plan analysis under Roman numeral 5 in the staff report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second by Hopper.
Motion by Carlson, second by Hopper to approve the comprehensive plan analysis as found in the staff report under Roman numeral 5. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
My roadway goes back to my pasture and road.
Any opposed, nay?
I had an opportunity.
Motion carries unanimously. I would ask for council's findings of fact.
Mr. Mayor, the Kalvo City Council accepts the facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and the evidence of all adopted city ordinance standards and codes we use in evaluating the application.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second by Hopper.
I have a motion by Carlson, second by Hopper to approve the findings of fact. Any further discussion?
I can't hear you, sorry.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, thank you. Any, opposed, nay? All right, I would ask for comprehensive plan analysis.
I couldn't hear what you were trying to say,
Oh, sorry. Conclusions of law. That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Mr. Mayor, the Kalvo City Council has the authority to hear this case and order it to be approved or denied. The public notice requirements were met, the hearing was legally noticed and posted, and the hearing was held and conducted under the requirements of Idaho Code and city ordinance.
Thank you.
Second by Hopper.
Second by Hopper, motion by Carlson to approve the conclusions of law. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Conclusion, excuse me, order of decision.
Mr. Mayor, based on the finding of facts and conclusion of law, the Kalvo hearing examiner, excuse me, I got the wrong one there. Put down, way down. Well, I guess they don't have it. Based on the finding, facts, and conclusion of law, Kalvo City Council hereby recommends, request for a planned unit development preliminary plot at Miyoko, Aiko, whatever, subdivision containing 23 single-family residential townhouses, lots on the subject property, R27438, 4.56 acres, is approved with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Thank you.
Second by Hopper.
Motion by Carlson, second by Mr. Hopper for approval of the request with all the conditions as outlined in the staff report. Any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Carlson,
Yes.
Pollard, Pollard,
Yes.
McGee, McGee,
Yes.
Hopper.
Yeah. All right, the decision was unanimous, and, it's approved, so good luck, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you very much, appreciate your time tonight.
You bet. Is there a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Hopper to close this public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. The next item is item number 3, which is a quasi judicial case, TE 21-000006. This is a request by Providence Properties LLC, requesting a preliminary plat renewal for Mason Creek Landing subdivision for up to 18 months. Phase 1, and Phase 2, final plats were recorded on August 8th, 2020. Phase number 3 construction is nearing completion for projected final plat recordation in December of this year, with phase number 4 also under construction. The development consists of 367, including 311 single-family lots, 34 common lots, 1 park lot, and 21 fourplex lots approved by special use permit in an R2 medium-density residential zone. Go right ahead. This hearing is open.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. We're here before you to, seek approval of a, preliminary plat renewal. This development fell under the new code, requirements, adopted by council earlier in the spring. And, unfortunately, the preliminary plat expired prior to them requesting the time extension, and so we're here for the one-time renewal. This development is under construction, has been under construction. They've, the construction drawings for phase 3 were approved. The construction is almost complete, if not complete now, with the paving. Phase 4, construction drawings are approved, with construction being, ongoing on that as well. The development has, there's quite a number of homes built within this development at this point. Staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat renewal for this project to, continue with the, development of Mason Creek Landing. And, this property, unlike some of the time extensions that have been before you, this property is zoned medium-density residential. The preliminary plat is, designed for R2 lots, medium-density residential. They do have a pathway system, so it was approved in 2016. So this project is, more current than many that have been before, and, is consistent with the ordinance at this point. The open space pathways have been provided. There was one question from our engineering department regarding a lot that's already been approved in phase 1, but I thought I'd put it on the record, that indicates on some of the plans that it was to be for use for a fire station, and then the fire station was built off of Skyway, and Smead, I believe. And so there's just, it's kind of a little outstanding there that Lot 1, Block 1 in the, northwest corner, right there, Brent, that lot, those lots. It's currently now a storm drain and a irrigation easement, but just wanted to note that the engineering project plans reviewer noted that is still noted as a lot, designated for a fire station, on some of the plans. But for this preliminary plat, they have provided this summer, an updated preliminary plat with the correct lot and block numbering and the road name changes that were required to, make the connections through Mason Creek Grove subdivision, which is in the, southwest corner. And, so this preliminary plat is current and, under construction. Staff will recommend approval and staff for questions.
Thank you. Questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Ruth, at one time, this developer came forward and maybe the developer has changed, I don't know. But they offered this piece of property for a substation or a fire station, and then they also offered property for a public park. Is that public park still there available? Okay, I see a head being shaken.
Yeah, the property would be the, northeast corner, of this and across that, drainage way is still identified as a future, park.
Okay,
Or
thank
the
you.
public park, they would have to improve the amenities and things. That piece of property has been discussed by other developments as being a public park, and this council kind of balked a little bit at that, but on all of the plans on the preliminary plat, the intent is for it to be a park area. It is in the flood zone, it's kind of high water there, it can be, so, nicely located though, if it were to become a public park, especially as Skyway Street extends and as that area develops, so yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Root? Thank you. Mr. O'Connor, Mr. Connor, not O'Connor, Mr. Connor, Patrick Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Patrick Connor, address is 701 South Allen Street, Meridian.
And you've been this morning?
And I've been sworn.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Root, for the introduction for this preliminary plat renewal. This is Basic Creek Landing. I'll be respectful of your time and summarize the project. So this is a vicinity map. It's on the east side of Milton Road and north of Linden Road, just south of Highway 2026. The preliminary plat was approved a number of years ago. It's zoned R2, as Ms. Root said. This development is in line with the underlying comprehensive plan and the zone R2 medium density residential. Like Ms. Root said, this past springtime, we did do a preliminary plat update, where we updated the lot and block, to make it match, when we did phase 1, phase 2, the irrigation district wanted to put their irrigation lateral in its own lot, so that was a change that we made as well. The reason I'm staying for you today, and the reason we're spending time on this tonight is we dropped the ball. We can understand, that we were gonna have, the plat expired. We thought that from that plat renewal that we did this past spring would satisfy, the expiration of that. So that's not the case. Just to show a little bit of a timeline of kind of where we are and how we got to where we were, or where we are today. Phase 1 and phase 2 were recorded in August of 2020. We immediately started phase 3 and 4 engineering plans. That took about 3.5 months, and we submitted those to the city in early December. There was a 6.5 month city plan review time during that period of time. Like I said before, in the middle of that, we revised the preliminary plat, to update it for the new lot block numbering. And then in late June, we got permission or the authority to start construction on our phase 3 plans. We didn't really realize, but almost a month and a half later, the preliminary plat actually expired. About a month after that, we got approval for phase 4 to start, and then a month after that is when we were actually notified that the plat had expired a month and a half earlier. So we're kind of in a situation where we had two active phases under construction with a plat, and we're kind of stuck with the plat that had expired. So, thankfully, working with staff, working with the engineering department, they were helpful in working with us in getting necessary inspections done up until this point. They allowed us to have until November 15th, this date, to have those inspections done. Like Ms. Root said, we are paving, if not done with paving of that phase 3, and we hope to finish and record that phase in December. And as, you know, we have a lot of excuses, I feel like, these days, but the pandemic and the current state of the world has really hurt our ability to fit within this really tight timeline of the 12 months. It's extended, it's caused, you know, office closing, staff shortages, trade shortages, supply chain issues. It really has made it a challenge for us. And so, some lessons learned, and like I said, same for today, is we dropped the ball. We didn't realize we were going to be in this position, and we hope to not do it again. We have to understand that there are extenuating factors that have caused our review times to almost double in today's world. We also know that if we update a preliminary plat, it doesn't necessarily count as renewing it. It doesn't add to that extra clock time. And also recording 2 phases. We recorded phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time, and that didn't give us 24 months, it gave us just 12 months. So it's when you get a plat recorded, no matter how many you do at the same time. Moving forward, I think it'd be wise as we talk about how we look at the code and how it could possibly change in the future. I think it's worth some time to think about, you know, is this 12-month time frame between plats reasonable? Because I know there's a lot of people that are having these issues because of COVID, because of supply chain, because of all the issues and what it takes to develop a project and design a project, you know, project approved, you go through all the necessary hoops that we want to go through to make it the right project and do it well. That 12-month window is getting really, really tight, as we know. So I think it's worthwhile, and I just wanted to state, to be on the record, that I would be in favor of talking through it. You know, potentially that 12-month window could be tacked on to the point of approval of construction plans. And then there'd be another time frame for how soon it is before you submit new plans after you get a previous plat recorded. I think there's multiple ways to look at this to make sure that these projects continue to move and that they're developed in a timely manner. But they don't put us in a position where every 9 months or so, I have to come before you and ask for a time extension because, you know, Idaho Power had a 4-month delay, and I'm stuck here, can't do anything because of things that are happening outside of our power. As it is right now, we would have to start construction plan drawings 4 to 5 months before we even finish a phase. So we're starting drawings on the next phase, and we're not even done building. That changes may happen later on in the process that we're not accounting for in these drawings that we're doing, you know, 5 months before. So anyway, I think I've kind of beaten that horse on the challenges that we face today. So thank you for allowing me to present this today, and I appreciate you all staying late tonight to work through this.
Thank you. And for the record, the presentation by Patrick Connor is CC 1000. Any questions for Mr. Connor?
Not necessarily a question, Mr. Mayor, but, just a comment, Mr. Connor. We understand that there are some heartaches here, and we do probably suffer a little bit on our side for not being as clear as we need to be with these timelines, but, you know, our past is filled with time extensions for plats that were approved 15, 20 years ago. And we may have gone a little bit overboard with trying to make sure we're renewing these on a timely basis, but seriously, we do have code changes quite often, and we do have some substandard developments happening right now because of our older rules. So we do need to just, I think we're open to fixing the calendar a little bit, but we don't want to get too far away from the approval and what's actually being built, and that's really important to us. So I understand your frustrations, and this is an unusual time, but I think if we can have staff work as quickly as we can and as diligently as we can to let you guys know when you have a project that needs to be renewed, that we just stay on the same page and keep it moving.
Thank you, Mr. Hopper. Other questions or comments? All right, I would ask for a motion to close the public testimony portion of the hearing. So moved. Thank you, is there a second?
Second.
A motion from Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Hopper, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I need another aye somewhere.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. I would submit for your approval, the evidence list, staff report, sign-up sheet, the plat of Mason Creek Landing, and CC 1000, which is the presentation by Patrick Conley.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the evidence list as presented.
Thank you, is there a second?
Aye.
Second by Hopper, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you, motion carries unanimously. I would ask then for, all we need on that, we don't need comprehensive plan analysis, but we do need findings of fact.
Mr. Mayor, the Colville City Council accepts the general facts outlined in the staff report, public testimony, and the evidence list approved through the previous motion.
Thank you, is there a second?
Second by Hopper.
Motion by Carlson, second by Hopper, to approve the findings of fact as stated. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Another aye, please.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Any opposed, nay? Thank you. All right, let's see, that was findings of fact, conclusions of law.
Mr. Mayor, the Colville City Council has the authority to hear this request and order that it be approved or denied. The public notice requirements were met and the hearing was held and conducted under the requirements of the Idaho Code City Ordinance.
Second by Hopper.
Motion by Carlson, second by Hopper for conclusions of law as stated. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Yay! Got 4 ayes on that one. All right, motion carries unanimously. Order of decision, please.
Mr. Mayor, based on the findings, facts, and conclusions of law, the Colville City Council hereby orders that case number TE 21-0000006, a request by Providence Properties LLC for a preliminary plot renewal for Mason Creek Landing subdivision is approved with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Carlson, second by Hopper. With the clerk call roll, please.
Alton,
Yes.
Pollard,
No.
McGee,
Yes.
Hopper.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Motion carries by a majority. All right, that concludes item number 3. Item number 4, we need to continue to a time and date certain, which would be December 6th, 7 p.m. in these chambers. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second by Hopper.
Thank you. Motion by Carlson, second by Hopper to continue item number 4 to December 6th, 7 p.m. in these chambers. All in favor, please say aye.
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 We must have, I think so.
Because we're waiting.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was Carlson and Hopper again. All right, no problem. All right, the next item then to consider is the action number 5, which is consider acceptance of the canvass of votes from the Canyon County Board of Canvassers of the consolidated election held on November 3rd, 2021 for the mayor, 4-year term, and city council seats 1, 2, 3, 4-year term. Mrs. Geyer. Okay. All right, I can do this, and we'll just do it all at once. Consider acceptance of the canvass of votes from the Canyon County Board of Canvassers on the consolidated election held on November 3rd, 2021 for the mayor, 4-year term, and city council seats 1, 2, 3, 4-year term. In the position of mayor, which requires a runoff, John McGee, 1,075 votes. Jerem Wagoner, 2,236 votes. Council seat number 1, 4-year term, Brad Doty, 1,432 votes. City council seat number 2, 4-year term, Chuck Stoddard, 1,427 votes. City council seat number 3, 4-year term, Diana Register, 1,587 votes. Number of registered voters are 23,818. Number of ballots cast, 4,800. Percentage of registered voters that voted, 20.2%.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the canvassing of the votes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Pollard, to approve the acceptance of the canvass of votes. For the clerk, call the roll, please.
Yes.
Hopper.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Motion is unanimous, and the votes have been approved as, or canvas has been approved as presented. All right, that moves us then to the next item, which is consider bill number 63, ordinance number 3382, to annex Saddleback subdivision phase number 2, instrument number 20210747747 into the Kalvo Municipal Irrigation District, with the request to waive the rules and pass on the first reading. This is common and voluntary, and I will read the ordinance and ask for council's consideration. Bill number 63, ordinance number 3382, an ordinance of the city of Kalvo, Idaho, annexing a portion of property within the corporate city limits into the Kalvo Municipal Irrigation District of the city of Kalvo, Canyon County, Idaho, and changing the boundaries thereof. Directing the city engineer to alter the boundary map accordingly, declaring the intent of the city to pool water rights and apply a uniform method of allocating assessments and charges and providing an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we waive the three reading rule, consider bill number 63, ordinance 3382 on first reading by title only.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Pollard. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Paulson.
Yes.
Pollard.
Yes.
McGee. McGee.
Yes.
Hopper.
Yes.
Rules have been suspended.
Mr. Mayor, I will sponsor bill number 63, ordinance 3382, move for its passage.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second by Hopper.
Thank you. Motion by Carlson, second by Hopper to sponsor bill number 63, ordinance number 3382, move for its passage on its first reading by title only. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Paulson.
Yes.
Pollard.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Hopper.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Bill number 63, ordinance number 3382 has been passed by the Kalvo City Council. Next bill is like unto it. Consider bill number 64, ordinance number 3383, to annex Klamath Falls subdivision phase number 1 into the Kalvo Municipal Irrigation District. Bill number 64, ordinance number 3383, an ordinance of the city of Kalvo, Idaho, annexing a portion of property within the corporate city limits into the Kalvo Municipal Irrigation District of the city of Kalvo, Canyon County, Idaho, and changing the boundaries thereof. Directing the city engineer to alter the boundary map accordingly, declaring the intent of the city to pool water rights and apply a uniform method of allocating assessments and charges, and providing an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we waive the three reading rule, consider bill number 64, ordinance 3383 by title only.
Thank you.
Second by Hopper.
A motion by Mr. Carlson, second by Mr. Hopper to waive the three reading process to consider bill number 64, ordinance number 3383 on its first reading by title only. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Paulson.
Yes.
Pollard.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Hopper.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, I'll sponsor bill number 64, ordinance 3383, move for its passage.
Second by Hopper.
Thank you. A motion by Carlson, second by Hopper to sponsor bill number 64, ordinance number 3383, move for its first passage by title only. Move for its passage on the first reading by title only. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Paulson.
Yes.
Pollard.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Hopper.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Bill number 64, ordinance number 3383 has been passed by the city council on its first reading by title only. Financial report.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Pollard.
I'm gonna do my best because my little puppy is whining over here, but I'll try to get this through this.
All right.
The finance committee.
Sounds so much like you.
Your accounts payable. Pardon me?
Sounds so much like you.
It does. Anyway, the finance committee has reviewed current accounts payable in the amount of $1,390,098.85 for the period ending November 10th, 2021. A net payroll in the amount of $459,474.96 for the pay period ending October 23rd, 2021. I move that accounts payable in the amount of $1,390,098.85, represented by check numbers 15776 to through 157992. And payroll for the amount of $459,874,096, represented by check numbers 36643 through 36704, and direct deposits be accepted, payments approved, and vouchers filed in the office of city clerk.
Thank you. Have a motion motion Mr. Pollard, second by Mr. Carlson regarding the financial report. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Council reports, Mr. Pollard.
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Carlson.
Nothing.
Mr. Hopper.
Nothing.
Mr. McGee.
Not tonight.
All right, just real quickly, a couple things that you'll be interested in. First of all, we did have the groundbreaking, for the largest commercial or industrial building in the city of Kalvo. It was really well done. That was, Thursday the 4th at 11 o'clock. We also have another wonderful groundbreaking tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. That's, the new D&B supply store, which is going to be their flagship model, 100,000 square foot beautiful retail building. That is on the corner of Smead and, Highway 2026. So that groundbreaking is at 11 o'clock in the morning, if any of you are interested in coming. With that, I will wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. We won't see each other until after that, and just as a comment to those in this room and those on the call, I am more thankful for you than I can possibly put into words. So just wanted you to know that. Love you all, have a wonderful evening, and accept the motion to adjourn. Mr. Carlson?
We love you too, sir.
Thank you.
Yep. But I'll second the Hopper.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, good night.
Good night.